distancing and public gathering thresholds, Township Council meetings are currently being held electronically. Members of the public may watch or participate in this open meeting electronically using any of the following methods. Watch the live stream by accessing the meeting at calendar.northdumfries.ca/council. Under the video column, click on the link for the meeting date that you wish to watch. You do not need a YouTube account to watch the live stream. You cannot directly participate in the meeting via the live stream, as this is for viewing only. Secondly, members of the public interested in attending as an observer or wish to speak to any item listed under item 8.1, Committee of the Whole reports, or item 10, items for discussion, had to have submitted the request in writing to the clerk's division at clerk@northdumfries before 6 p.m. on Sunday, December 13th. A link and telephone number was provided to those who registered before the registration deadline. And finally, if you would like to comment on a particular item, but are not available to attend the meeting virtually, members of the public are invited to submit written comments at clerk@northdumfries.ca, which will be provided to the mayor and council prior to the meeting. I'd like to now call the meeting to order and have approval of the agenda, please.
So moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Rolleman that Council adopt the December 14th, 2020 Council agenda as presented with the following addendums. 1, add item 8.1.3C, report number CAO 49-2020, follow up on the Safe Spaces program. And 2, amendment to item 8.1.3A, CAO report number 47-2020, framework of a go-forward strategy indoor ice usage. And that all correspondence circulated to council in advance of this meeting and made publicly available on the township's website will form part of the public record for this meeting of council. Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rolleman?
Yes.
Councillor Oster?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that carries.
Thank you. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interests and general nature thereof? Seeing none. We have a presentation from Nancy Cadusac, Director of Water Services with the Region of Waterloo. Welcome, Nancy. She is here, correct?
Yes. Yes.
There
Yes,
she is,
she's
yeah.
here.
And I will. Sure. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Nancy.
Okay, thank you. Through to you, Mayor Foxton. This is the 2021 user rate presentation for North Dumfries and Wellesley. Some of the key considerations for this 2021 budget is council direction to prepare a budget with a 0% user rate impact. And staff were directed to look at the current level of service, as well as looking at opportunities for optimization and efficiencies to reduce the budget. And the budget was presented to Region Council on November the 25th and is being brought forward again on December 16th for approval. The proposed 2021 budget is at 2.8 million for water distribution and 1.5 million for wastewater collection. Staff were able to reduce and optimize the budget by $60,000 and was able to meet the target of a 0% rate increase for both the water distribution and wastewater collection, as well as the wholesale rates for the region. A few of the future initiatives planned for 2021 include upgrades at our Roseville and Branchton Meadows water treatment facility. We're also working on an education program. We've updated the region's website for conservation promotion, providing door hangers. And I happen to have one that will come in the with the bill, as well as offers of free home audits to look at conservation in the home. We continue to work on our service leak reduction program, as well as doing sanitary sewer camera inspection work. Just as a bit of a highlight, this diagram shows service repairs between 2012 and 2020. And for each colored dot represents a year, and it highlights the work that's been done over the last several years related to service leak repairs. On average, there's approximately 25 repairs completed, and that costs about $230,000 to $270,000, which is included in the operating budgets. A little bit of history is that we've identified some poor service installations in some areas, which have resulted in premature failure of the water services. So we're looking at strategically, how do we address this issue? It would not be reasonable to go in and replace every service in air, but we're looking strategically at how we do that. And we've gone through a number of steps over the years, looking at what we call step testing or isolating areas to look at where the service leak is. We've also looked at something called using a vibration system. We've looked at acoustic testing and satellite imagery. For the sanitary side, we look at the wastewater and we do camera inspections of the wastewater system as well. And on the lower left, you can see that there's a boulder in one of the sanitary lines, and also on the right, there's an image of a failure where wastewater is leaking in, or water is leaking into the wastewater system. And we would look at that to identify the condition of the pipe as well as the repair. For water communication, we continue to communicate out to the public, both on groundwater as well as on conservation, promoting using water wisely in the summer, as well as our new program of softening only hot water. We've updated our region's website, and we're also in partnership with North Dumfries, providing a social media campaign to encourage education on conservation. So we have in our website tips on conservation, and of today, I've heard that there's about 108 clicks that residents have been doing to look at the tip sheet. We also have information on how to read your water bill, as well as offering free home audits. And just to highlight that the water meters, if there is an issue and it's requested by a resident, the meter can go out for testing. And we've seen in the past that those test results come back that the meter is reading accurately. As the meter ages, and that's why we take the replacement of a meter very seriously, as it ages, the meter will actually read, underread the actual volume coming into the home. We've put on our website some information about how to read the water bill. And one of the issues that may have come up from time to time is individuals calling in because they've seen their water bill go up over a period of time. And that's because the billing period may change. So that may be variable. Even though their consumption on a daily basis may stay the same, that billing period may have changed over the year. On our revenue side, we have projected 2.8 million for water, and for wastewater, 1.5 million. And that's again based on both the fixed rate and the variable rate. The water distribution budget is 2.8 million. The 10-year capital program is also 2.8 million, and it's broken down between leak detection, distribution, meter replacement, which is scheduled in 2024-25, and fleet replacement. This pie chart gives you a detailed breakdown of the expenditures for the 2.8 million, with the largest cost being the wholesale water purchase. It also includes repairs and maintenance, compensation for staff who are dedicated to the North Dumfries and Wellesley program, as well as the capital financing. On wastewater collection, the operating budget is 1.5 million and the capital program over 10 years is 2 million. It's broken down, the capital program, between replacement and upgrades and collection studies. The wastewater collection is broken down again in this pie chart of 1.5 million, with the main cost of 1 million being the wholesale water costs. The other costs include capital financing and interdepartmental and repairs and maintenance costs. With the 0% rate being proposed for the volumetric rate, the volumetric rate for water will remain at 3.14 and 2.32 for wastewater. On the fixed rate, the fixed rate again will stay at $10 for water and $8 for wastewater. For a homeowner, they won't see a rate increase this year for water and wastewater. And based on a consumption of 175, their water costs would be $670 per year, and 502 for 502 for wastewater. With the adjustments on the wholesale rate to the rate profile, we were also able to propose changes to the rate profile for the retail side and have been able to reduce them from what we projected in 2020. So in conclusion, there is no rate increase for 2021, which means the volumetric and fixed monthly rates will remain unchanged. We also are maintaining a financially sustainable and viable program. We are focusing on asset renewal. The model has been adjusted, and the model has been adjusted as a result of much of the work done on the wholesale side to help really the retail side. And with that, I finished the presentation, and I'm pleased to answer any questions.
Nancy, can you remove your script? Thank you. Councilors, any questions? Seeing none, I have a few, Nancy. So it's a 0% rate increase, which is wonderful. So we're staying the same. But actually, are there some costs that have gone up and we are covering it with the tax stabilization fund?
On the water wholesale side, we are using some of our stabilization funds. So not on the retail side, but on the region's wholesale side. We're looking at moving some of our stabilization fund to cover off some of our capital programs.
That's a good thing to help us this year, but it also, people have to realize then that increase this year will still exist next year, plus the increase for next year. So next year could be even a bigger hit because we've actually not brought it in this year. Just a comment. The other one was the billing cycles. So as you just discussed with you and Thomas Schmidt, who's so sometimes we're getting a bill at 41 days, and then we're getting a bill at 90 days, and people think that they're paying, their numbers have gone off the wall. We were going to talk to finance, to Craig Dyer, to see that we could get a consistent billing. Did we end up getting that consistent billing?
Is Cheryl on the line? Would you like to speak to that, Cheryl?
Certainly. Unfortunately, water billing is not in my area of expertise, not my area of responsibility. However, I did speak to some staff at the region, and my understanding is that the issues that were related to the water billing periods that occurred, that you're referring to, were more related to the logistics due to COVID. And I can go back to the water billing staff to see if that will persist in the future. But my understanding that was more of a one-off issue when the pandemic began, that they had trouble getting meter readers out on a consistently periodic basis. I don't know if that.
So hopefully they're going to be consistent, and you will respond back to us maybe with a note,
I'll
an
follow
email
up.
even,
Yeah, I'll
telling us
follow
they're
up
going to
with
be
them.
consistent. Good,
Yeah,
okay, I
for sure.
understand. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor McCreary. You're on mute, councillor.
Sorry. Nancy, during your presentation, you mentioned that there were some premature failures in the water distribution system. So I guess that is resulting in a lot of leaks occurring. That seems to be kind of a regular occurrence in the older downtown areas of Ayr. I'm wondering if you can elaborate a little bit more on what's causing these premature failures.
So the premature failures are related to the actual installation that occurred 30 years ago. And the one slide that I showed what we're finding when we go back and have to repair the water service. And we're finding that the method of that was used for that service installation was substandard. And we're finding boulders and other fill material that shouldn't be found there in that service line. So that's a historical issue. What we're doing now is it wouldn't be feasible to go in throughout Ayr and replace all 2,000 service lines. Some of them may be still in very good condition and some are not. So what we've done over the years is taken different technologies to look at and identify where service leaks occur. The current program that we have is called district metering, and we put district metering in throughout Ayr, and that allows us to isolate areas of Ayr and monitor the water flowing into those areas. And by doing that, we also do acoustical work to look at and identify where those potential leaks are if the district metering is showing higher flows than normal. We're taking all this information and we're evaluating it to see if we can strategically assess where we can do more repair work. We're also looking at partnering. So when they did the work on roads, that we can do partnerships with either the region or the local municipality and look at service connections and replacement of the service connections at that time. So we're using different tools to identify leaks, and we're also looking at different relationships and different strategic construction projects to repair the service leaks.
Okay, thank you.
Nancy, just on that point, you were talking about, so we're just talking older Ayr though, because the system that was put in 30 years ago is only older Ayr. If we look at all the other developments and subdivisions, they should have up-to-date systems, correct? So it's just we're looking at older Ayr.
There's two key areas that we're looking at. That's what we call the central area in Ayr, and then the Piper area of Ayr are those two key areas that we're seeing this issue. The other areas through the district metering, we're seeing that it's been in good, it's more normal construction and doesn't seem to fall into that same failure that we're seeing in these locations.
So it really wouldn't be 2,000 homes then, would it? It would be probably around, would you say 500, 600?
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to estimate. I think I would have to go back and look at what it is. But again, that's why we're trying to strategically look at what areas that we need to identify. And then we partner with the road work when it's being done as well.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, councillors? Can I have the motion, please?
Yes, so moved by Councillor Ossner and seconded by Councillor Roleman that the presentation received from Nancy Kudasak, Director, Water Services with the Region of Waterloo regarding 2021 water, sewer distribution and collection budgets be received. Mayor Fox, can you vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Roleman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
Okay, that carries.
Thank you. Do you need time to move in and out, people? Are we good to go ahead?
Yeah, so just give Cynthia a minute to move everybody in for the next delegation.
Okay, we are ready.
Thank you. So I'd like to now welcome Peggy Gillespie, President of the Air North Dumfries Lions Club, providing an annual update to Council as regards to the Memorandum of Understanding between the Township of North Dumfries and the Air North Dumfries Lions Club. Welcome, Peggy.
Thank you, Mayor Foxton. Members of Council, it's my pleasure to make this very brief report on the activities of the Lions during 2020. Although our activities have been extremely curtailed due to COVID-19 pandemic, I am pleased to report the induction of 5 new members in this past year, bringing our membership to 15. The summary of our service activities includes members of the club having participated in several food banks with the assisting the township as they presented those. Our largest service project is always the Santa Claus Parade. Many thanks to the township for suggesting a viable and socially responsible way to bring Santa to the residents of North Dumfries this year. Also thanks to the mayor for providing Santa with a very safe and stylish sleigh. And thanks to all of the township employees who assisted and participated in this new venture. All who participated in both parades were thrilled with the turnout in Ayr and all of the communities throughout the township. Several members of the club recently spent an afternoon decorating a Christmas tree in Centennial Park. And our final service project this year will be a donation of grocery gift cards to the Neighbors Helping Neighbors program in the amount of $500. During this difficult year, the majority of our activities have truly been in partnership with the township. We are ever grateful for the support of our local government in serving our community. It is our hope that 2021 will see a return to our normal fundraising and service activities, including the ham supper, the fishing derby, and participation in the outdoor farm show, as well as the projects already discussed. I would like to wish the council and employees of North Dumfries a blessed and happy Christmas from your partners in service, the Air North Dumfries Lions Club. This report is respectfully submitted.
Thank you. Any questions, councillors? You've done a great job. Oh, Councillor Gillespie.
Yeah, I would just like to say thank you so much for bringing the parade to Branchton and Clyde. Everyone just loved it and it was great. Thank you.
You're very welcome, and we certainly enjoyed doing that. Some of our members had never seen that part of the township before.
And I'm really glad to hear about your increase in membership.
As are we. It makes our life much easier when trying to put on some of these events. A few extra hands are a big help.
Yes. So if there's no other questions or comments, can I ask the clerk, please?
As moved by Councillor McCreary and seconded by Councillor Rollman, that the delegation received from Peggy Gillespie, President with the Air North Dumfries Lion Club, regarding their annual update for council be received. So Mayor Fox, can you vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that carries.
Thank you. I'll let you move them in and out, Ashley. You ready, Ashley?
Just waiting on Cynthia. Is everyone good to go?
David is in and now Irene is in. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Next, we have David Piper with the North Dumfries Historical Preservation Society, providing the annual update for council as requested in the memorandum of understanding between the Township of North Dumfries and the North Dumfries Historical Preservation Society. Welcome, David and Irene.
Nice to see you all again. It's been a long time, actually. Hope well. Wanted just to say, I'm here with Irene tonight. We're just doing our annual update from the North Dumfries Historical Preservation Society. I want to say, first of all, thanks to the township for putting money towards cleaning the township records. It's certainly a project that is vast in its scope and very necessary. And thanks to Councillor McCurry for heading that up. She's our treasurer, and she has a great deal of concern for this kind of work, just like many of you do, I'm sure. We're not going to review the presentation. We assume you've read it all. We will take some questions. Just things I'll say. The pandemic has been, like for everyone else, a difficult challenge for us in terms of doing very much, especially when the township office was closed for half the year. But we do have some interesting things happening, and Irene's going to talk to you about a couple of those.
Hi. So even though we've been closed because of the pandemic, we have been able to move forward with our Now and Then project. I think council's aware that we've contracted a videographer from Cambridge to create a video. We hope it's the first in a series, but thinking of the AIR 200th anniversary, we chose AIR as the subject for a Now and Then video. So if you go on YouTube and do a search for Now and Then, you'll see Marty Lachance's work. And we're excited that I was able to meet with him in the middle of COVID activities. And he gave us some direction to move forward. So we're excited about that. The other thing that happened unexpectedly was, I don't know if any of you have ever seen the Dryden history book. It's probably 300 pages long. And the gentleman that wrote that book passed away, and his family gave us all the research. It's probably 5 cartons. It's at the Air News right now. And with that research came histories connected with the Drydens, but about other families as well. Kim Bonnie Hops, our member who couldn't be here tonight, she started digitizing those records. So we're excited once we can get together to take a look at them. The other thing that happened this year is we were finally able to move forward with having our first planned meeting with the North Dumfries Heritage Committee. And we hoped it went well. And we're looking forward to having a more constructed relationship with the Heritage Committee. And then the final exciting thing that was able to happen is that a few years ago, what could be Civil War artifacts were donated to myself at the Air News, and I've in turn designated them for the Heritage Society. Kim Bonnie Hops has taken it upon herself to, number one, we wanted to see if they are indeed real. And to do that, she hasn't given up in her research, and now she's made a beautiful connection with the Civil War Museum of the United States. So, like I said, Kim's been relentless in trying to have these artifacts verified if they're real, and I don't want to say what they are before we can verify that they're real. It would be very exciting for both North Dumfries and the Preservation Society. So if there are any questions, we can certainly.
Before we take questions, I'll just make mention of the Now and Then project. It's a substantial project financially, and it's being funded through the Cambridge North Dumfries Community Foundation grant that we received last year, and also being matched by our own internal funds that we raise whenever we have the chance to raise funds, and money that's been donated. I would also say that if you're interested in checking out more about us, not just the website, Kim and Irene, they operate the website and Facebook, and it's quite an active Facebook site if you're interested in that. So if there are questions, either Irene or I could answer them for you.
Councilors, any questions or comments? Keep up the good work. We're all very proud of you and the work you do, and we find you invaluable.
Well, we look forward to being more invaluable after vaccines.
Yes.
Thank you.
On
All
that
right.
note, may I have the motion, please?
Moved by Councillor Ossner and seconded by Councillor Rollman. Have a delegation received from David Piper with the North Dumfries Historical Preservation Society regarding their annual update for council be received. Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Cynthia, let me know when you're ready.
Will do. Wes Reek is joining us for our third delegation by phone.
Thank you. So welcome West Week, requesting the removal of a no truck route along Reedsville Road between Greenfield Road and Wrigley Road. Go ahead, Wes. Wes, are you there? Cynthia, can you check to see his connection?
Sorry, are you able to hear me?
We are. Thank you. So go
Excellent.
ahead.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Here to talk about something that's not typically popular amongst local residents, but I have some concerns I want to bring to your attention, if I may. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the business that I own. We are a water delivery company. We deliver water in tanker trucks for a wide variety of applications. Our main source of business is both pool and rink filling, much of which we do in the local area. We work on a variety of construction projects. We are actively involved in the construction downtown area this summer. We do sod watering. Ironically, one of our main customers is the region of Waterloo, where we pick up and deliver potable drinking water for them. We do also work for the township of North Dumfries directly. So we're familiar with the local area, and we just want to bring some concerns to you guys. There's a section of Reedsville Road in between Greenfield Road and Wrigley Road that has been marked a no truck route for as long as I can remember. Now, my units routinely travel on no truck routes as they are providing local delivery services, and that holds up for that section of Reedsville Road as well. Now, we were recently informed by the region of Waterloo police services that they're going to be writing tickets for any truck found on that no truck route. My concern specifically is, number one, it was indicated to us that there's going to be no discretion on the officer's part when writing that ticket. If they see a truck, they must write a ticket to it. And my concern is just the alternative for us. So I don't know how many of you travel that area, but the alternative for my trucks are to head east on Greenfield Road, where they meet Dumfries Road. In doing this, there is a very sharp turn just as you come up to Dumfries Road on Greenfield Road, where there's no shoulder on either side. So if two trucks were to meet, each one would be likely stealing a little bit of the other's lane, and this could potentially lead to a collision. When we're traveling on that route, we're typically going to the eastern portion of the township or into Brown County, which means we're making a right-hand turn onto Dumfries Road. We're operating full-size tractor-trailer units. In order to make this turn, we have to take up the lane of oncoming traffic to allow our trailer to travel without contacting the shoulder or anything on the shoulder. The issue is oncoming traffic in that area is coming up a hill around a blind corner. So they may not see my units turning until it's too late. there's obviously going to be concerns from the few residents on Reedsville Road about increased truck traffic. If you take a look at the flow of traffic of trucks in the area, it would not be beneficial to many trucks other than the ones operating out of Ward 2, such as myself. None of the gravel trucks in the area would really save any time by going down that road. So I don't think that would particularly take place. In my opinion, it would simply lead to a safer route for trucks such as mine located in Ward 2 and a few other local companies to get where we're going. We count many of the local residents as customers, and at the end of the day, my concern is for both my drivers and my unit safety as well as the safety of those customers. So we're not trying to pick a fight on this issue. Obviously, we want to maintain a positive reputation, but I did want to bring these concerns to you because I have been in this business for some time, and I feel that forcing our trucks to use the alternative route is going to end up hopefully not in tragedy, but potentially with property damage being the best case scenario in my mind. So those are my concerns, and I'm more than open to your feedback.
Comments or questions? Councillor Rossler.
Would it be the best interest to have a staff report come to us?
That's what the motion states. The motion
Yeah,
states that staff will
because
come
I
back
think
with you
that
for
we need
February.
to look at what the options are with the traffic, because obviously we can't just open a road to selected truck traffic. It's either on or off. So hopefully we can come up with some sort of safe suggestion on how we can alleviate the problem.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, can I have the motion, please?
Certainly. So moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor McCreary that the delegation received from Wesley Reick requesting the removal of a no truck route along Reedsville Road between Greenfield Road to Wrigley Road be received, and that staff be directed to prepare a report for the February 8th, 2021 Committee of the Whole meeting regarding an amendment to the traffic and parking bylaw. So Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Ostner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that carries.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Too.
So are we ready to go to Committee of the Whole? Come out of Committee of the Whole, go into, sit as Committee of the Whole?
Yes, so moved by Councillor McCreary, seconded by Councillor Ostner, that council adjourn to sit as Committee of the Whole. So Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Ostner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that carries.
Thank you. So 8.1.1 finance function areas. I'd like to ask members of council if they would like to speak on any of the issues and remove them from the consent agenda. Anyone wish to move any of the items? Councillor McCreary. You're on mute again.
8.1.1A.
Okay. Anyone else seeing any? Then can we have the motion that will pass 8.1.1B through to F?
Yes, certainly. So moved by Councillor Rollman, seconded by Councillor Ostner, that Committee of the Whole recommend the following items be approved as presented as outlined in the staff reports listed in the finance function area, and that being 8.1.1B through to item F. So Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Ostner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that carries.
Thank you. Just let me get here to sign it. And now 8.1.1A. Councillor McCreary.
I just have a question about the capital project list. The report says that tonight we're approving the capital project list that was amended as of November 26th, but this is going to be subject to an annual review during the capital budgeting process. So are we saying there that this capital project list is going to be looked at annually and could be changed? And if it is changed annually, does that mean our development charges are going to be changed annually? I don't recall in the past that we really went back to that capital project list. It was approved once and then that was it. It stayed that way for the next 5 years. So I wonder if I could have a little bit clarification there.
Council McCreary, I mean, CEO McNeely.
Madam Mayor, through you to Councillor McCreary. This is a standard comment because obviously the DC background report and not only the projects, but the timing of when the projects are forecast was based on work completed this summer. So it's important that council on an annual basis, when you approve the budget, if the economy, as an example, slows, certain capital projects may not be required as early in the time period as required and maybe shifted slightly out in the forecast. Or conversely, if the rate of build exceeds what our forecast and certain projects are needed earlier in the time period, the adjustment would be made accordingly. So it does not trigger an adjustment to the DC background report or bylaw, but what it does do is it provides council on an annual basis to reflect upon the 10-year forecast, those development charge projects that are either 100% funded or partially funded from development charges to be properly considered at that point in time and its relevance at that point in time in terms of, let's say, if I was looking at a 21 deliverable project versus perhaps pushing it out a couple of years because of other internal, external factors. That's the relevance so that council can always reflect on where we are in our growth cycle and how it affects one or more development charges projects.
So if I may, Councillor Rossner, go ahead.
Through you to CEO McNeely, does that go as well for the item F, the draft budget document? Because we're going to be voting on something later, your CAO report 48-2020, but we've approved this. Is it that's same principle?
So when we typically deal with the long-term capital forecast, the 10-year, council on an annual basis just adopts it in principle, but it's updated each year, and there may be movement of one or more projects from year to year based on factors. It's the same principle. We look at that specific year in the budget, but we are doing it based on information related to the following 9-year period, so council can have a better understanding of the larger obligations of the corporation and the associated funding strategy. That way you're not looking at any one year or any one project in isolation.
Any other questions? I can give one example did we not get a fire truck that we had an advantage of moving ahead to purchase it earlier because it was such a good deal, CO McNeely? I believe we did that.
Yes, we did, related to the replacement of the tanker. It was for a couple of reasons, but one, yes, we had a very attractive financing option available to acquire a gently used truck. And so a report was presented to council and the timeline was moved up a couple of years based on the analysis done by staff, the presentation to council with a recommendation, obviously the decision of township council.
So basically the 10-year forecast is what we want to happen in that 10 years. And we've set certain years that those will happen in, but a situation may come about that will allow us to be fluid to move things around, such as if we wanted to do something, but a fantastic grant came up and we had the opportunity to go for a grant and it could move that thing forward, then it would be a fluid thing, but it still would be in that 10-year forecast. Any other questions or comments on this? You do not have to read the motion in entirety. priority, but if you could do the motion, please.
Certainly. So moved by Councillor Ossner and seconded by Councillor McCreary. The council received CAO report number 46-2020, and with chair's permission, as presented in the staff report. Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Roleman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Carried.
Thank you. Next, we will move on to developmental services. Any councillors wish to speak to any of the items on the report? Councillor McCreary.
2.1.2D.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, so we can go with the motion to cover. No, is this where we're having?
We do have members of the public that are
Right.
registered as well to speak to item D.
Okay, are those the registered speakers? First Carson O'Connor? So that's item D. We'll move A through C first, please.
So moved by Councillor McCreary, seconded by Councillor Ossner. The committee of the whole recommend the following items be approved as presented as outlined in the staff report listed in the development services function area. So 8.1.1A through to C. So Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Roleman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that carries.
Okay, and now we have speakers for D. Would you, the speakers go first, clerk, or does the council go first?
If you'd like to proceed with the speakers first, it's
Okay,
that's
so we
fine.
have Carson O'Connor, Development Coordinator, Valar Capital.
Hi, thank you, Mayor Foxton and councillors. I'd just like to introduce myself. I'm Carson O'Connor, the Development Coordinator for Air Meadows Development, Inc., and I represent the developer for this site. I also have a couple other colleagues, Kyle Bittman and John Van Den Elzen on as well, and they're also available to speak. So I'd just like to let you know that we are in support of the staff recommendations in the staff report, and I'm happy to be here and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. So both Kyle and John, do they wish to speak, or are they just, you're just going to answer questions?
Mayor Foxton, John Van Elzen. Just if there's a question, fine. There's no need for me to speak.
Okay, and Kyle, the same thing?
Same thing, yeah.
Okay, Margaret, Councilor McCreary, your questions, please.
Yeah, I was just curious about the design of this area. I think I wasn't on council when this was originally approved, so there's probably some background to this. But I'm looking at where there's a fence that's supposed to be in between this building and the railway track, and there's also a gravel path. And it looks like, unless my bifocals aren't strong enough here, the gravel path is actually on the other side of the fence. The gravel path is between the fence and the railway track. Like, what is the purpose of this fence? And why are you trying to keep people off the railway track? And if you are, why do we have a walking trail on the other side of the fence, which almost invites people to walk right beside the railway track? It seemed a bit odd. There must be some explanation there.
Yes, so the, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the walking path is actually connected to the municipal walking path system. And I believe part of the site plan conditions for the townhouse block, which is behind this, was that it would be separated by the fence.
Cyril McNeely.
So, Madam Mayor, if I could just elaborate on what Kyle has just summarized. Originally, we looked at the entire property in its sum, being, approximately 11 plus acres. And then as individual components came forward, the commercial block that's before council tonight is the last of 3 separate but integrated site plans that allow for the full realization of development on the property. The township has identified a trail connection from Northumberland Street to the extreme west limits of the Air Meadows property. And so that would cross not only the commercial block that's before council tonight, but the previously approved site plan for the 82 townhouse units. And there'll be a fence between the property, the development property, but there will also be the fence adjacent to CP rail corridor. The block in between the fence will be dedicated and transferred to the municipality, similar to what was done for the townhouse block. There is a gravel trail that will then allow that connection from Northumberland Street parallel to the CP rail corridor to the east limits of the Air Meadows property. So that'll be a public access trail owned and maintained by the township. This piece, strategically then, if there was further development on the adjacent property to the east, it would actually provide us with a connection or a lookout through an extension of the trail right to the Nith River itself. And so this is part of a larger strategy and allows public access in the immediate term, but also allows for a larger realization of a bigger trail system as other adjacent lands come up for redevelopment in the future.
Any other questions? Councillor Rollman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to, I guess, to the CAO. I agree with what Councilor McCreary is saying, because when you look at the drawing on page 3 of this report, there's a parking area behind the proposed commercial block that would be right adjacent to the train tracks. So if someone were to come down that trail from the west heading east towards Northumberland Street, they would have to go to the end of the fence line before they could come around and then go into the stores. So what I'm wondering is, could the fence be shortened and stop just before the parking lot begins? And that would allow people coming down the trail to cross over that little berm and into the parking lot and then into the stores. It'd make for better access for people coming and going from the stores, as opposed to having to follow the fence line, the fence line between the store block and the trail all the way to Northumberland Street. It's kind of odd to have that little piece of fence there when it's blocking a parking lot.
Who'd like to respond? CO McNeely, you're on mute.
The original intent was to differentiate the public versus the private realm. So certainly I can have that discussion with the owner. So essentially, if I'm understanding your question, you're looking at, is it appropriate to have a 4 or 5 foot wide space, for lack of a better term, where an individual could come off the trail and directly align with the sidewalk in the front access point to the emerging or future commercial units? Is that a fair?
Yes,
He's nodding yes.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, certainly I can have that discussion with the ownership group. But as I said, the fence by function was to differentiate the public and private realm.
Any other questions? Seeing none, can we have the motion, please?
So moved by Councillor Ossner, seconded by Councillor McCreary, that PD report number PD 33-2020 be received, and that Development Services Committee recommend to Council that the Mayor and Clerk be authorized to execute a site plan control agreement between the Township of North Dumfries and Air Meadows Development Incorporated to facilitate the construction of a 1-story commercial building, 669 square feet in size, located at 160 Northumberland Street, subject to the following. 1, the inclusion of all outstanding matters as identified by Energy Plus Incorporated, the township's engineer consultant. 2, any minor revisions as required by the chief administrative officer, and that bylaw number 3209-20 being a bylaw to authorize a site plan control agreement between Air Meadows Development Incorporated and the township be executed. So Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, that carries.
Thank you. Next, we have the Community Services Function Area. And I'd like to ask, any members of council wish to speak on this item? Councillor Ossner?
Yeah, I'd like to speak on both A and B.
Councillor McCreary?
I'd like to speak on B.
Okay. No one else, seeing no one else. We have 8 delegates, I believe, and the first up is Russ Hutchings. Cynthia, you'll let me know when you're ready.
Yes.
Are we
Hello?
ready? Go
Can you hear
ahead,
me
Russ.
okay?
Welcome, Russ. Go ahead.
Good morning, or sorry, good evening. Good evening, councilors and Madam Mayor. My name's Russ Hutchings, and I'm the chairperson for the Center for the Community Group, also known as the CCG. I'd like to start my presentation first with a bit of background of the CCG. In 2004, a group of local young families joined together to form the CCG. They had a vision, a complete complex with a new arena or arenas, community health center, soccer fields, and other outdoor facilities. A gathering place for youth and seniors, and a multi-use space for community groups. Young and old, a place where the whole community could unite. Seed money for the CCG was raised through a gala, golf tournament, and penny drive. With these funds, the CCG partnered with Township on 2 key initiatives: a facility needs assessment study and a fundraising feasibility study. A significant investment to meet current and future recreational social needs was the recommendation. The plan was developed. Economic collapse in 2008, the Build Canada Fund stimulus program by the federal government with a matching provincial and municipal funding formula was created. Financial commitment was sought and received from all levels of government. In the township proposal, however, fields were not covered. The CCG committed to a $1.5 million community fundraising program to pay for all the outdoor facilities that weren't covered under the Build Canada Fund. Also in the proposal, it was thought that a second ice pad was required. It was highlighted in the needs assessment. Cost estimates at that time for a twinning of the twin pad was $3.5 million to $5 million. However, there was no opportunity to increase the Build Canada funding. So council voted to move forward with the proposal or wait for a future opportunity. The CCG remains strongly in favor of the twin pad proposal. This is financially beneficial to township and also gives us another regulation ice pad facility. While the community came together, community sports stepped up, old air, new air, and those throughout the township came together to donate funds to achieve and surplus our fundraising goal. Volunteers throughout the community donated their time and resources through galas, golf tournaments, and a winter lude. With the good guidance of township and volunteers, the Fields Committee came in under budget of the $1.5 million and donated to the CCG, donated $240,000 to township of the surplus funds that were remaining. The headlines in the Cambridge Times, August 31st, 2011 were "New Ice, New Life for Air." Well, let's take a second to reflect. What if we didn't move forward with the NDCC? Where would all the new residents in Air go for their health care? There would be no Lang's Farm. Air Centennials had a great run. 1,000 to 1,200 fans in the stand for their Junior C championships. This has also given them revenue to increase up a level to become a Junior B team. Girls hockey has expanded exponentially. Adult hockey has grown. Now we have female hockey. We have a senior center, community garden, silver stick tournaments, and figure skating events. Youth soccer continues to grow. If we didn't build Cowan Field, they would not be able to hold tournaments. Adult soccer is growing. Walking track inside and out. Spray pad and playground. Things that weren't even on the radar 10 years ago. Scorpion volleyball and pickleball have flourished. Skate park has been added, a great addition. And of course, it's become a makeshift town hall. And also one of the other things, we have historical displays. Without the NDCC, North Dumfries residents would have been a burden on neighboring communities for their recreational services. With the EB and Sanger's Field of Dreams, we all should be proud. We built it and they came. The next steps, the CCG is offering to assist Township on the next steps in the twin pad proposal. We highly support the initiative to twin the NDCC for future growth. This requires no shutdown of the ACC if that's one of the directions you want to go with the retrofit. It also eliminates the possibility of the ACC ice surface floor deterioration on a do-nothing approach. We also support the ACC for recreational activities such as pickleball, volleyball, etc. for the repurposing of it. This will also allow the Air Paris Band to keep their practice facility. In conclusion, let's use the successful template from the past. The staff and council consultants report highlights the community and user groups need the twin pad. Townships and the community working together to meet our growing needs. Let's have a competitive advantage over other communities to acquire funds to meet growing requirements of our future recreational needs. Let's prepare shovel-ready plans to acquire the funding. This is an opportunity for us to work together and share the vision, share the passion for our growing community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, any questions to us? Seeing none. Next up, Rob Deutschmann, and I forgot to mention to us, all the speakers have 5 minutes, please. So Rob Deutschmann, is he ready?
Yes, thank you.
There you are.
Madam Mayor, council staff, and the viewing public, thank you for the chance to speak about this exciting opportunity for the community. I want to add my voice to those that support the CAO report following the results of the consultant reports, that being the twinning of the NDCC and the opportunity to repurpose the ACC. I will not reiterate the benefits that have been outlined in the consultant's report and noted in the CAO report. There are numerous benefits for our growing community. Council has the benefit of two very well-prepared consultant reports and a CAO report that provides the framework for a good plan moving forward. The phase 1 study confirms what was shown in a prior study back in 2007. Air is a continuing and growing need for ice. It was the case prior to 2007. Confirmed in the report from 2007, it was predicted to grow, and the phase 1 report has confirmed that continuing and growing need. Council has the support, the facts to move forward with 2 rinks for air. As noted in the CAO report, even if the predictions were off by 20%, there's still a strong need for 2 ice surfaces. But as I stated, since prior to 2007 and supported by the reports, the need is there and growing. Once you have affirmed the need for 2 rinks, the phase 2 report and the CAO report outline a strong list of arguments to support the twinning of the NDCC. The opportunity cost, as described in the CAO report, is significant. The cost would be a huge loss to the community if we did not take advantage of this opportunity. As our township grows and air, which is where the growth is targeted, it will be necessary to ensure that the township can continue to deliver services to meet the growth. The twinning of the NDCC provides that opportunity for the township. It provides an opportunity to also repurpose the ACC and provide for enhanced non-ice services for a growing community. I would argue that as the need for expanded services is the result of new growth in our community, development charges should also be considered as a source of revenue to assist funding these capital projects. A viable argument in support of that proposition can be made by the township. Costs for capital projects are always a valid concern of council. We appreciate the cost of this. Costs were a concern prior to the NDCC. However, with the strong support of the community, council made the investment and it has paid back large dividends for our community. The township contributed almost $7 million to the NDCC, and the township was still able to complete several other capital projects throughout the township. This reminds me of the story of the Roseville Community Center. There were those at the township office back in the day that wanted to demolish the center and put up a picnic shelter in its place. The building was deteriorating and required a lot of work. Over 3 years, starting with repair of the roof, we were able to put together a community solution that included some contribution from the International Plowing Match, the Roseville community, and funding from an upper tier infrastructure program and we were able to significantly renovate and save the Roseville Community Center. It would certainly be a loss to the community and to Roseville if we demolished that building and only had a picnic shelter. It also reminds me of the view that positive development in any part of the township benefits all the township. Development in air and its related assessment growth allows council to help all communities within the township, and that is a good thing. Today, township has an opportunity to deliver to the community transformational change, adding a new rink to the NDCC and at the same time provide the community with another building that can offer opportunities for non-ice programming. The CA report has a well laid out plan to go forward. I support most of the 7 points in the strategy outlined in 3.3 of the report as it relates to the twinning of the NDCC and repurposing the ACC. Considering our experience back in 2007, I would suggest the following. 1, establish a facilities committee that would include members of council, staff, the community, user groups, and the CCG. This would form the basis for information gathering from the community as outlined in paragraph 6 and provide guidance to the architect if an architect is used. It would also
Rob,
be beneficial.
if I could just jump in quickly, you just have a minute left.
Yeah, it would be beneficial for future fundraising, however township decides to approach. I thank Mr. McNeely for sending out an addendum report clarifying item 2. The CCG has not been approached on this item, but the CCG would consider making a contribution towards the cost of an architect. In 2007, the township retained an architect and fully funded the costs. However, the CCG would give serious consideration to a request. The CCG funds based on the trust that was provided when donated to us will be made available to township in full when there are shovels in the ground. And it's important to contact upper tier government, provincial and federal MPs and MPPs, as Minister Goodyear back in the day was key for us in lobbying efforts. So based on our experience in 2005 to 2010, I'd submit that the CAO report lays out a viable plan, subject to some tweaks as suggested, to lead to another successful capital campaign and deliver transformational change to our growing community. I strongly urge North Dumfries Council to take this positive step forward with the community to deliver this positive change in North Dumfries Township. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you. I believe Mike Tebow's next. I don't see Mike. Do we have Mike Tebow?
I just need a minute.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, are everybody that's speaking of obviously is speaking in support of the twinning?
I believe so.
Okay, how many people are speaking?
We have 7 left. They each have 5 minutes. It's better than the 50 we had at the region the other night and then 32 the next night.
Well, would it not be more productive just to have a representative on behalf of the group? I'm assuming that there's mostly support, or
but they're all different groups. Mike, are you there? You're on mute, Mike.
Hi there, good evening, and thank you for having us.
Go ahead, Michael.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for entertaining us this evening. I'm going to ask our friend Tim Hart, lifetime member of Air Minor Hockey and longtime volunteer within the community, to speak on the twinning the NDCC project. Tim?
Okay, just a minute, Michael. So you're going to be using Tim. So is Tim doing a separate one as well? Or is he
No,
just?
he's doing I'm just here to answer questions more or less.
Okay, so you and Tim are together, a joint one.
Correct, yes.
Thank you. Does that include Tina as well, the 3 of you?
Tina's here as well, just to support.
Okay, so the 3 of you are together doing one presentation. You have 5 minutes. Go ahead, Tim. Tim, are you muted? I don't hear you.
He's muted. He's a non-video participant. I'm not sure how you unmute him.
Cynthia, Ashley, can you take care of that, please?
Yeah.
There he is. Tim, are you with us?
Cynthia, have you allowed Tim to speak?
Yes, I have.
Okay, we can't hear anything from him yet.
I can't see Tim at all.
It looks like he's left the meeting from what I see.
Maybe he's trying to get back in again.
So Michael, I do have the presentation up if you wanted to go through it.
Are you prepared to speak on the presentation, Michael?
I prefer if Tim would, yes, but I can speak on it. Thanks again. Once again, I want to thank everyone for taking the time to allow us to discuss our support at Air Minor Hockey for the twinning of the NDCC. Currently, our association is growing every year with the, of course, COVID. This COVID year has been a bit different, but currently we have, let's see here, we have an waiting age group, people waiting in each age group on a waiting list to join us this season. That was the beginning of this season to start. As you can see, in 2018 and 2019, Air Minor Hockey had 323 members. 2019 to 2020, 347. And then 2020-21 with COVID, we had 277 with wait lists, but it was holding us back due to cohorts. We needed to make sure we stayed within our the requirements of the township, or sorry, of the region. We expect to see up close to, if not 400 players next season, if we're back to normal. With the addition of juvenile hockey in a local league and a rep league situation. As you can see, that our growth seems to mirror the growth that's in the report. We also provide with our tournaments, hosting tournaments. We do have a substantial, where I'm ahead of myself here. I'm sorry, everyone. We do have a substantial economic impact when we run our tournaments. We run 3. We have the regional Air Silver Stick, the AE Silver Stick, the novice rep Silver Stick, as well as our local league tournament that's run throughout the season. Last season, we had upwards of 12,000. We make it a pretty big footprint here in the region. We have the Cambridge, Brantford, Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge, and Brantford all see quite a bit of income that is generated from our tournaments, and I hope that that translates into business in our in North Dumfries Township for sure. Having a new arena for us would mean a huge difference as far as scheduling goes, as far as hosting tournaments are concerned. We would have a unified location to host our tournaments, which would provide us with a uniform ice surface that would match the surface we currently have at the NDCC. We have from an organizational standpoint, it makes our job hugely far less confusing and difficult to manage with the addition of the second pad at the NDCC. And we also recognize there would be savings for the township themselves as well through organization, staffing, and that type of thing. We see from the Air Minor Hockey standpoint, we also see the benefits for other user groups within North Dumfries. Additional skating programs, pickleball, yoga classes, hall rentals, all would be part and parcel if we were to add another pad at the NDCC, as well as repurpose the ACC. Are there any questions regarding my presentation this evening?
Councillors? Seeing none?
I must have spoke very well then. Thank you.
You did. Thank you very much. So I believe we will be, Tina, you were with Mike, correct? So you don't need to speak. So we now go on to Jamie Gautieri. Do we have Jamie?
Yeah, just a moment.
Welcome, Jamie. You're on mute. There you go. Oh, there you go.
Great, thank you very much. Madam Mayor and councillors, thanks so much for having me. I would like to offer the Air Skating Club's support of CAO's report and the twinning of the ice pads at the NDCC. For us, just to give a bit of background, during non-COVID times, and certainly this has been a very different year for all of us, we operate our programs out of both arenas. Some of the limitations that we experience at the ACC currently requires us to restrict our Learn to Skate programs, especially to smaller numbers. The reason for that is safety. The size and the shape has, sorry, just starting the video there. The size and the shape of that pad and the types of circuits that Learn to Skaters do require us to keep the numbers a bit smaller there, which we have had to turn people away in the past. And certainly as we look at the growth projections, anticipate that to be an ongoing concern. For our mid to high level skaters, the size there requires them to make modifications to their programs. So if you can envision an ice dance pair, I'm sure you've all watched competitions or even the Olympics, you see that as they're skating, they get very close to the boards often during their wind-ups and whatnot. And you can envision what that's like and the type of modifications that are needed to be made if you're trying to do that on the shape at of the ice at the ACC. So these modifications often are very tricky for skaters because it is a muscle memory sport. The other thing that twinning the pads would enable us to do is help to contain costs. For us, operating out of the two facilities really does double everything. There's two skating harnesses. For insurance reasons, those have to be inspected each year. Lots of supplies for our Can Skate Learn to Skaters. And as a nonprofit, all of those costs have to be passed on to our members. There's not a lot of option for sort of absorbing those out of any sort of profit or whatnot. The other thing that twinning the pads would do is open up a lot of opportunity for us. So, it's certainly not lost on us that the 10-year plan for AIR does forecast growth. We've certainly seen the interest in our programs start to increase. We've definitely seen it happen this year, even during COVID times. And we'd like to consider being able to offer more classes to keep up with that demand, and also different types of classes. For example, synchronized skating, or offering some of the Can Power Skate opportunities that Skate Canada has, and help support some of our colleagues in hockey as well with those type of programs. The last opportunity it would open for the Air Skating Club is around hosting competitions. So many of you may remember back in 2016, we actually hosted a competition at the NDCC. It was a fantastic one, a smaller one for up and coming skaters. But back then, Skate Ontario was broken into a whole bunch of regional offices. And in 2017, that system was abolished. And now it's a province-wide organization known as Skate Ontario. So today we can't really consider hosting a competition because there's simply too many participants coming from across the province to be able to facilitate that on only one full-size pad.
Jamie, just to note, you just have about a minute left.
Thank you. Yeah, just wrapping up. So it's for these reasons that the Air Skating Club supports the twinning of the ice pads, and thank you for your consideration of this very important matter.
Jamie, I have one question. So you mentioned, and it just came to mind, you have two harnesses at two separate locations.
Yeah.
And you have to have them both insured, you have to have them both inspected. But you would still have two harnesses if we did twinning, correct?
No, I think we would be able to get away with just one because we don't need a harness for our Can skaters. We only need it for our higher level ones. So certainly we would work with township staff to schedule in such a way that our higher level programs would be on one pad and we'd look to move the can skaters to the other ones. So we'd have to grow quite significantly, I think, before we'd be at a point where we'd need both types of groups on both pads.
Thank you for clarifying that for me. If no other questions, next we have, and thank you for coming tonight, Jamie.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Tricia McEwen, up down at the bottom there. Good evening, Tricia.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members, and sorry, I had to move this other way, and township staff. First, I would just like to take a minute briefly on behalf of the Air Rockets Board of Directors to thank you for reducing the hourly ice rental rate while we are in the red stage. It has allowed us to better stay within our budget and still allow our teams to be on the ice twice a week, as they would have in orange or yellow zone, playing at home and away games. So we do appreciate your willingness to help out the arena user groups as you have. So on behalf of the Air Rockets directors, we would wholeheartedly support the Arena Strategy Consultants report phase 1 and phase 2. So not only does North Dumfries Township need 2 arenas, the best choice is to decommission the ACC as an ice pad and add a second ice pad to the NDCC. The need for 2 ice pads became quite evident when the ACC did not open this fall. So many adult user groups did not get their usual ice allotment this year and had their leagues canceled. So on a side note, I personally, along with many women I play with, am disappointed not to be playing this year because of this. But other user groups were not able to obtain all of the ice hours they needed. For example, the Rockets had to rent ice from outside the township because we could not get the number of hours we needed at the NDCC alone. So hockey is not a dying sport in our township. The pandemic has not decreased our membership this season. We have roughly the same number of members as we have had the last few seasons, and all this without the intense advertising we usually do. As the town of Ayr grows in population, we can only expect our membership to increase, as will the need for ice time. So no longer is there a girls' ringette program in town. So if girls would like to play an ice sport, it is air figure skating or air rockets, unless they want to go out of town. Now, the argument can be made that parents won't automatically put their girls into ice hockey as an extracurricular activity, but many of our members begin because their older brothers or sisters play. Many of them begin playing because their classmates and their friends play. And girls want to spend time with girls. So instead of sitting at home by themselves on a Saturday afternoon, they come and join hockey to spend time with their friends. We also gain members from other organizations locally because of our reputation of having a great hockey program, development included, and great coaches at a reasonable price. Definitely cheaper than competitive dance, for example. Just ask my neighbor. As our population expands, even the adults moving to town, those who grew up playing the sport will be looking for a league to play in. We can only expect our adult leagues to expand as well. And look at our ladies league, for example, which started a number of years ago with only a handful of players looking to hit the ice, get some exercise, socialize, try a new sport that their husbands and children love. So adding a new ice pad to the NDCC makes the most sense. Both ice pads should be at the same location. Municipalities have done this in Kitchener, Hespeler, Wilmot, Woolwich, Waterloo, Brantford, and that's just locally. There must be a reason why municipalities build multiple rinks at the same location. Consolidation of staff, equipment, resources, decreased ongoing costs. The ACC was a hub of the community, but unfortunately has become little out of date. Township staff have really tried their best to make the best ice they can with the aging equipment. But as a player and a team trainer, I have seen the conditions continue to deteriorate there. I have seen sticks broken along the aging boards. Bench areas often have open concrete in front of the doors. And the ice is often rough in the corners that takes players down. It continues to be increasingly unsafe. And that is something only actual participants would notice. I can't forget the night, even when the ladies were locked out of our change room because the lock broke. You shouldn't have to be putting money into an aging facility. The dimensions of ice surfaces have increased since the ACC was built and have become the new standard. The ACC cannot be used for games, only practices. To increase the number of ice times for our members, we schedule shared ice practices, meaning 2 teams use the ice at once. And this does create crowding at practices at the ACC. Many of our members feel slighted to have to use the ACC instead of the larger, newer NDCC ice. Change rooms at the ACC are cramped for our large teams of up to 18 players. There's only a single shower, and for many years, there was not even hand soap at the sink. The lobby's small, there's no concession stand, no Wi-Fi. Having 2 ice rinks at the NDCC will allow the Rockets and the Flames to store all of our equipment at the same location. There would be no further need to buy equipment for each arena, as we had to do with our bumpers and our small nets for use of age groups. The newly built ice surface would be the new standard size of ice rinks, allowing for easier scheduling because either ice pad can be used for games. The Rockets is looking to reestablish our annual tournament, post-COVID, of course. Having 2 ice pads at the same location would be a tremendous benefit for hosting tournaments. The NDCC is a jewel in the township to host out-of-town teams. What a way to showcase our township, perhaps attract future residents or businesses. But the ACC is outdated and not a place to host our guests. And finally, at long last, we will solve the problem of having parents dropping their player off for practices at the wrong arena. So the Rockets urges you to accept the recommendations of the consultants' reports, decommission the ACC as an ice pad, and twin the NDCC. Thank you.
Thank you, Tricia. Any questions or comments? Seeing none. Next up, we have Jerry Ward, and I believe Jerry's already in here. Where'd he go? There he is. Jerry, go ahead. You're
Hi.
up.
How you doing?
I'm good.
Thanks
How
so
are
much.
you?
I'm great. I'm great.
Good.
I was asked to just give a little bit of a perspective on pickleball. You'll be glad to hear, first of all, that we do not play it on ice, so we wouldn't be taking up any time in the twin pads. But I read the consultant's report, and there was a point in there where they mentioned repurposing the ACC, and pickleball was mentioned in there as a possible candidate for some space in there. So I thought it'd be useful to give you a little bit of a perspective on what the heck is pickleball, how many people in our community play it, how many are likely to play it. And I guess to solve Andrew's basic question is, can we make any money off this thing over the next couple of years? Right now, there's 3 courts available in McNeil Hall. We use them 4 time slots a week. Pickleball is one of the fastest growing sports in North America. I think the perception is that it's played by people of my vintage, which is over 55. But the reality is, in Ontario right now, according to a Ipsos poll at the end of December, there's 165,000 people in Ontario play it, and it's equally split between 18 to 34, 35 to 54, and a third at over 55. Just from an information point of view, pickleball is played on a court that's, you can put 4 of them basically inside the tennis court. So if you're trying to compare usage of pickleball to tennis, for example, on a tennis court, you'll have 2 to 4 people playing. In that same space in pickleball, you would have 16 playing. Anyway, that's my little pitch. I think if you're repurposing the ACC, it would be a useful thing to include pickleball in there, and I don't think the township and the population would be disappointed in the participation. That's it.
Thank you, Jerry. Are there any comments? Thank you, and you have a good night, Jerry.
All
Next,
right.
we have up Wesley Burt.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. Thank you very much. My name is Wesley Burt, and I think maybe the best way to introduce myself is I'm just a citizen, part of North Dumfries. I live in Ayr. And thank you, Sue, for inviting me here today. I might tweak what I say a little bit just based on what I've heard already. I think you've got a lot of good facts thrown at you, but basically who I am, I wanted to kind of go through the things I heard in October when I reviewed the council meeting there. And I viewed that and I had some feedback. So the first thing I saw, some of the councillor concerns were about capacity for 2 rinks and will be sustained. So just as a citizen in Ayr, I'm a father of 3, well, 2 with 1 on the way. And my first one just started the junior IP program. I'm also a brother of 2 who both, my brothers have older brother. Both of them have moved into town in the past 2 years, bought houses and have wives and are now starting young families and have a passion for hockey. And I'm also an old timer. I'm 35, but in Ayr, that's an old timer, which I participate in the men's league. And also I play on Thursday nights. And as a matter of fact, I'm only one of 2 from Ayr. The rest are actually 30 minutes away, but they commute out to Ayr just because it's the only place to find ice. But I do resonate with the fact that our ice was shut down this year. So that was sad with the ACC not being open. So if in terms of will capacity for 2 rinks be sustained, I think everyone else is maybe presenting real facts. I'm just part of the figures. So I just wanted to share that to begin. Secondly, kind of who I am professionally. So I'm a senior manager at Toyota Motor Manufacturing Canada. And as I started thinking about the presentation that was shared in October, I started thinking, what experience do I have in this matter? What could I bring to you? As public workers, what I've experienced. And I actually realized I went through the exact situation that you're going through back in 2016. I was responsible for external logistics, and I had 2 facilities, one that was a newer one, about 6 years old, and one that was aging, about 20 years old. And we had to decide 2 options, really. Do we upgrade the old facility, which is about $1 million, or do we merge and expand our newer facility, which was about $7 million. And it's not the 10 million that you're up against, but it was very similar. Of course, with that capital expense, I did need to do a lot of convincing and approval and study. It was about 2 years of my life, but I will attest that we did end up going with the expansion and really moving 2 facilities into 1. And really what it came down to was the operating costs. And in October, when I listened to the consultant review the operating costs, his comments resonated exactly with what my experience was for those 2 years when he went over the management overhead, the utility cost, facility maintenance, even when it comes to snow removal, grass cutting, all these things on the operations side make the initial investment worth it. So from a business decision, I think it's the right thing to do, having 1 facility. And then I think other folks already mentioned, some of the benefits of having hockey tournaments and figure skating competitions and what that would do having it in 1 place. And those are all very, very valid comments that I think those folks can speak to. And then lastly, I think I was just thinking about as a counselor, what happens to the ACC. And I think the repurposing was already talked about from many folks, and I think that's a really wise decision. I think there's a lot of partners in town. I think we just saw what happened with the skate park, and I think if you got feedback from the citizens, I think there'd be a lot of good opportunity to basically you have a shell of a building, which big part of doing anything is putting in the the electrical and the plumbing and getting a roof. You've got all that there, and by removing the actual ice facility, I think you can open that up to carving it up for ball hockey, soccer, badminton, volleyball, basketball, tennis, pickleball. Now here, so that's a good idea, or a combination of all those. So I think that's maybe my 2 cents on what you do with the ACC. But I think maybe most importantly, that's a future decision. That's something you need to make right now. But by the time that comes around, I think the community will also have even grown further at that point in time. So I think that's maybe my pitch for tonight. Any questions?
I don't see any hands raised for questions. Thank you very much, Wes, for coming tonight and sharing. And that's the last of our speakers. Now, Councillor Ostner, you wanted to speak on item A, report number CAO 47-2020, framework of a go-forward strategy. Your question, comment?
Yeah. So my question is basically looking at how the NDC was originally built. They hired an architect, then hired a builder, and started working with the architect's design, which there were several problems of ongoing consistency through the whole architectural plan, which led to overage costs. It also led to the companies not being able to work when they were supposed to work, all the above. We all know what problems. So my question is, as head of the Outdoor Fields Assessment Committee, we looked at architect design versus design build. And we had a meeting with Mike Malloy from Gateman Malloy, and we all agreed at that point that, yeah, we were going to go with design build, because basically with design build, if there's any mistakes, there's any overages, there's any stoppages, there's any issues there, it's not on the heels of the township, it's on the heels of the design build company. So my question is, if we approve this to move forward, do we have to include in the motion, sorry, I'm just bringing it back up here, item number 2 under 3.3 on page 13, I think it was, where it says initiate the process to hire an architectural firm in 2021. Do we have to go through with that, or can we leave that section out? Because what if we decide to go with design build? We don't need to spend $350,000 for an architectural drawings, etc.
If I can, Councillor Ostner, the motion states, and that this report be referred to the 2021 budget deliberation to inform the development of the 2021 budget and 10-year capital forecast. So I don't think we're getting down into the weeds just yet. I think that, but I could be wrong. CO McNeely, could you confirm that, please?
I'm so sorry, Mayor Foxton. In the report here.
It's in the report. That's right, and that's the suggestion.
So into the report that is included with this, the suggestion, the staff report that is to be considered in this. Sorry, I'm going to go to page 13 again.
I'm on it.
It recommends to initiate the process of hiring an architectural firm.
Correct, but we are just receiving the report to discuss that budget. We're not saying this is what we're doing. CEO McNeely, am I correct, or I may be wrong?
Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Oster, you're both correct. So yes, staff is not looking at council making a decision tonight. We put forward this report so that as council deliberates on the 2020 budget and the 10-year capital forecast as we get into January and into February, council can look at this project in the context of all of the capital commitments across all infrastructure, facilities, rolling stock, etc., over that 10-year period. So, Councillor Oster, you're quite correct. The draft report, from a perspective of sequencing of tasks, the premise is if council were to move forward with a twinning proposal coming out of the 2021 budget deliberations, that a consultant, architectural firm, and supporting trades be retained. My personal preference is to move forward with design build. The issue right now is more of where are we in our commitments. As you notice in the section 4, the financial implications, we have almost 2/3 of the expenditure associated with the capital build being generated through senior level government funding. And I make reference to the federal government's statement in the fall economic statement in November, where they said that there was $100 billion to be set aside and spent over 3 years. I'm working on the premise that there may be some infrastructure type funding that this project or a project similar to it might be eligible for. The problem we have is the moment we go to a design build, you move from design right into the build. And because we don't necessarily have the $10+ million available, unless council actually commits to it, it's difficult to frame a design build tender to have the private sector bid on and move through the milestones. So the premise was to start with the architectural drawings, engage the community, start framing what the building would look like, truth our budget. And when government grants became available, it would be a key input to try and put the township's application in a more favorable context, because then it would be shovel ready. And obviously we'd have a better understanding of what our costs are. The reality is, whether it's design build or design bid build, which was similar to what was done in 2009 for the NDCC as we know it today, it comes down to project management and how much is invested in terms of oversight and coordination. We have a better mechanism to contain costs through a design build. However, it still comes down to the proper oversight and coordination, regardless of our ultimate delivery means. And there were lessons learned with the NDCC project of 2011. Some of those were applied when we did the skate park project this past year. That was a design build initiative. So, we've got some experience with that. There are advantages to it, but the question becomes, do we have the $10+ million available now where we could then truly advance forward with a design build? And subject to direction coming out of budget, today we don't have it. And the question will be, what does council wish to move forward in terms of commitments to the twinning and timeframes? Because that will then inform where we go for our next steps.
Councillor Osner, and then Councillor McCreary.
So then just to follow up on that, basically, so to start an architectural design in 2021, that's just really, we're only doing that to utilize government funding. Because I understand if you do a design build, it's later in the process. But if we say hypothetically in 2024 or 2025, we decide we're going to build it, I understand that you're not going to start with or you would start with your architectural design now. But if we went design build, we may start that towards the end of 2023, in knowing that in 2025, that's when we plan to do it. It's just, do we do it now or do we do it later?
So the premise behind the strategy right now is the consultant has told us that under any scenario, once you start the process, it's about 3 years before, at a minimum, before you actually can use the building for its design purpose. So the intent was to get movement in 21 and start work, hoping that the government grants catch up to us and they become seamless and a building would open in the 23-24 time horizon. If we wait until, coming out of budget deliberations, council's direction is, nope, we're going to wait till 24 and we're going to see what the landscape is at that point in time. As long as council in 24 commits whatever the funding would be to make that project happen, then yes, it could be a design build. But then you'd be looking at, a late 26, early 27 opening of the complex. in its expanded form. So it's a matter of timeline. When do you want to see the project come to fruition? And your funding breakdown in terms of where the sources of revenue would be to match whatever the capital cost is. The other thing I do want to bring to council's attention, it was touched upon in the consultant's report, and staff carried it forward into the report that forms part of today's agenda. Generally, as a rule of thumb, capital costs for buildings grows by a factor of about 5% per annum. So obviously, the further we go into the decade, the potential for that inflation indexation does occur. You heard, I think it was Mr. Hutchings in his presentation talked about what the twinning of the NDCC would have been back in 2009, 2010 when the building was under construction versus what we now know to be the cost today. It's almost double in terms of what has happened in the decade related to construction costs.
So, sorry, Councillor McCreary, I just wanted to finish up this one.
Go ahead.
So would it not be possible for us to contact a design build company and have them do an architectural drawing subject to, hey, you have to do a bidding process, or do you have to, or do you just choose a?
Unless council sets aside its purchasing bylaw, we would be obligated to prepare a bid document, make it available to the marketplace. So the key component is if you're doing a design bid document, you actually have to provide the details of what you're looking at building. So it's more than just saying, I want a 85 by 200 foot ice surface added on to the existing NDCC. You actually have to talk about what the expectations are, the service standards, the finishing in a high level as to what each space or component of the addition would be. Because then that matches then what resources they would bring to design that project and ultimately moving forward to construct.
Because I did have a discussion with them about the design build arena that they bid on in Kitchener, and they went through the process of having an architect design it. And the city of Kitchener chose the architect, and it turned out to be a debacle, and it cost them a lot more money rather than have the design build company come in and do it. And we used a design build process for the outdoor needs facility, and it seemed to go pretty seamless. But I understand what you're saying with the whole process, how it goes, and it just somehow there's got to be, like, if we're committed to building in 2024, you should be able to start with the design build process at the same time as you would with architect drawing. And that's my last question.
Councilor McCreary.
Thank you, Mayor Foxon. I'd like to thank everyone who came out to speak to us tonight, and I can really hear the passion that everybody has for ice sports. But what I would like to do now is ask the community for its help. We need your help. No matter how we look at this is a major capital project for a small township. And we have very good, competent staff, and they are on top of North Dumfries' financial situation. We have a 10-year capital plan, which we've been working on for quite a while, and it is full of necessary projects, and it's very extensive. And we also have, there's new legislation coming out. The provincial government has introduced asset management plan legislation, and municipalities have to demonstrate by keeping detailed records and showing their go forward plans that they are diligently looking after what they already own. And if you aren't doing that and you aren't showing financial responsibility, you can be in the position of not even being eligible to apply for major grants. So I say that council and staff, we know what North Dumfries is capable of doing financially. And we really need help from other areas. Two big sources of funding for this are going to be government grants, other level of government, provincial, federal, and that's on from the CAO's report, that's $8 million, and that is a major grant. And also public fundraising. The public fundraising amount is at $2 million. So the financing is going to be a major hurdle. And we want to provide services to the community. We want to provide things that they need and things that they want. But we are going to have a significant amount of help coming from the community, from the users of this facility. So I would sincerely hope that the Center for the Community Group would do more than just consider helping us, that they will help us and that they will pay for the design of the facility so that we can be ready when capital projects, capital grants are out. And sometimes they come up at the spur of the moment and you only have a limited time to apply for them, that we can have that shovel-ready project and we can jump in there because we'll be competing with other communities and we will be able to secure the financing that we need. So what I'm saying is I would like the Center for the Community Group to help us by paying for the design for this new facility so we're ready to go when the money becomes available. And that the money is the crucial thing right here. And we need to be partners in this. Thank you.
Okay, so any other comments or questions? Getting back to the motion, oh, Councillor Gillespie.
Thank you, Mayor Foxton. I just wondered, you know, if the community group were always wanting an arena, they always thought it was going to happen. Why didn't they continue to fundraise all these years? They could have had a substantial amount. That's number one. And I agree with Councillor McCreary that they really need to put out their funds there and do the design work for the new arena if they're so desired. This whole consultation with the study it's kind of flawed in my opinion because it states right in it that no one from Ward 4 will use this. So I'm wondering if anyone was considering putting just an area tax rate on air to help pay for this, because if no one in Ward 4 is going to use the arena, should people in Ward 4 be paying for it? That's my concern.
Any comments, questions? Councillor McCreary.
I have heard that sometimes when municipalities do take on major projects like this, that there would be a sort of an annual assessment where each taxpayer or each ratepayer maybe pays $100 extra that goes into a reserve to pay for the new recreation center. Shelley Treasurer Stadal or Sam McNeely might know more about that, but that is another way we could finance it. And as Councillor Gillespie points out, that there would be areas in the township, Ward 4, that not going to ever use the twin pad that would probably strongly object to being assessed. But we have an awful lot of money to raise, and that might be one way it could be done.
If I may, before Councillor Rolleman, and then we'll ask Ms. Stedel to respond. There are members in Ward 4 that do come to the the NDCC. Actually, a fair number do come, especially because of the caliber of hockey here. Ms. Stedel.
Well, just through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor McCreary, earlier this evening, we passed the fees and charges bylaw for next year, and included in that there is a capital use fee. And so that is a small amount that has been set aside as sort of a place marker. It's not necessarily enough money. We certainly have not a lot in that reserve fund, but we have started. But yes, I have heard as well of other municipalities where they do actually put a capital surcharge onto the tax rate for capital buildings or for capital projects. But it may be, usually it's for a number of projects. It's not one specifically, but it could be considered, and yes, we could implement it.
Any other comments or questions? Councillor Rolleman.
Madam Mayor, the only missing piece of this whole discussion is the ACC. Everyone that spoke tonight and lots of other comments we've heard in the past have been how horrible the ACC is and how it cannot be used for ice and concrete patches in front of the dressing room or in front of the players' boxes and dressing rooms that are too small and no showers and small foyer and no Wi-Fi, et cetera, how bad it is there. Are we going to immediately mothball the ice in that facility and convert it to a gymnasium as we discussed, or are we going to continue to nurse it along for another 4 or 5 years before we can twin the NDCC? I'm concerned that all these people have raised the issue about how bad the ACC is and how dangerous it is, et cetera, et cetera. Are we going to continue to put ice in it, or is this the end of the ACC?
Really good point, Councillor Rowland, and I expect staff will come back with a plan of how we do move forward from this day to, and I see CAO McNeely has his hand up and he probably has the answer right now. Go ahead, CAO McNeely.
Madam Mayor, as we've identified in the staff report, the concern about shuttering the building in advance of a second ice surface being available here at the NDCC would cause a major upheaval with your current block of ice users. So in a non-COVID world, we're using right now the equivalent of 1.4, 1.5 ice surfaces. That's certain staff's expectation was going into the study, and the consultant's review did confirm that. So the reality is it's been difficult in this COVID world to try and find extra ice available in external centers, to try and find ice for those that we were not able to accommodate when we consolidated here at the NDCC for the 2020-21 season. And some of the blocks that we were able to find did not align with, I'll call them attractive hours that may have been taken up by some of our user groups, because it was basically the edges of available ice in other centers. So I'm not too sure we'd be able to find the equivalent of 0.4, 0.5 ice surfaces in terms of hours of programming external to the township. And obviously, if we're looking at a 3 or 4 year period before the next arena is actually available, in that period of time, we've heard some of the user groups talk about their current growth and their growth projection as the community grows. That gap only increases that much more, and the difficulty of finding that extra ice beyond what is historically been required in the community would even be that much more problematic. So the current rink, the ice plant is certified and licensed. The ice plant makes ice. The challenge with the ice at the ACC is the corners are extremely tight. So they're not that sweeping curve that you have at the NDCC. They're very tight. The Zamboni can't fit into the corners, and as such, it doesn't make that travel along the edge of the board in those corners. And so yes, the ice can be at slightly higher or lower grade versus the balance of the ice, or it could be rougher just because the Zamboni can't get in there each hour as ice users rotate. It's at the end of the day, the ice gets ground and then flooded again. But as you go through multiple hours, it becomes rougher in the corner. That's just the reality of an older rink with smaller ice surface and tight corners. But the ice itself is safe. The plant is safe. What I have identified in the report is, which was reflected in the consultant's analysis, we are on borrowed time. And obviously, the deeper we go into the decade, the greater the likelihood is of service interruption. And so that's why staff said, you know, it's important upon council to make a decision in terms of a go forward, whatever that decision is. Because if the decision is to go back to one ice, we need to start making arrangements now for next year with external centers to try and protect blocks of ice for our users. And it's not a long-term strategy to be able to do that.
Councillor Williman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So then to follow up, we're in a position where we will have to spend money on the ACC to keep it running. So we're renovating it, maybe not $2 million, but we'll be putting money into that. At the same time, we're trying to raise money for that at the NDCC. You've told council many times that we can't juggle both projects. Are we at a point where we have to, take our lumps now and cut our losses at the ACC and put our money aside for a twin pad, or do we continue to, put bandages on the ACC and that drains money away from the NDCC project? I just don't know if we can afford to do both.
So, Madam Mayor, Councillor Roman, there's two different kinds of capital expenditures for the ACC. There is the keeping the building in a state of good repair. So that's your roof, your windows, your broader ventilation system, your elevator, floors, and whatever. Regardless of what the future use of the ACC would be, keeping the building in a state of good repair is a sound investment. The building still has economic value. What staff has said is you wouldn't want to make the investment in the ice plant, the new concrete pad, the glass and the boards if you're going to twin, because you won't get the economic return out of that one-time capital to improve the ice surface. Because if you're going to do the other 5 years out, you've made an investment that has 25 to 40 years of life, and you're only getting 5 years of use out of it. So that's what staff has said. Right now, we're carrying both the twin being a capital build, as well as the new ice-related elements for the ACC in the 10-year capital forecast. That doesn't make sense, and nor would you deliver both generally in the same time period, because it doesn't make economic sense in that regard.
Any other questions or comments? So can we hear the motion for 8.1.3A, please?
That's moved by Councillor McCreary and seconded by Councillor Gillespie, that CAO report number 47-2020 be received, and that this report be referred to the 2021 budget deliberations to inform the development of the 2021 budget and 10-year capital forecast 2021 to 2030. Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that carries.
Now, report number CAO 48-2020, Framework of Leisure Services Master Plan, item B. So Councillor Ossner and McCreary had questions on this. Councillor Ossner, you're first.
Yeah, my question was for this, that when I look through the Framework of Leisure Services plans of our parks, et cetera, and that, I'm having a hard time understanding why we need to spend the $100,000 for a report when we have a leisure committee. We have input. I think that we can mostly put together decisions on the parks ourselves, and I don't really see the need to go in depth with a $100,000 study. We seem to be paying a lot of money for study. I mean, we just finished paying, I think it was $60,000 for the arena strategy. I think we all knew ahead of time what it was going to turn, how it was going to turn out, and that's exactly how it turned out. So I'm starting to question some of these studies, whether they're necessary to spend the money.
CEO McNeely.
So, Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Ossner, certainly an evaluation of the existing parks and how they're designed to serve the community, both existing and the future, but also the future parks where they're proposed and service standards is one element of the leisure services master plan. But the document is also to look at the existing facilities and what new facilities or expansions or renovations to existing facilities may be required to meet the growing demands of the population, not only within urban air, but obviously across the township as a whole. The other aspect is looking at programming. The township today does not deliver recreation or leisure programs. We've been historically reliant upon the private sector or non-governmental organizations to provide support and programming on behalf of our residents. As such, we're sort of hamstrung when new initiatives or new opportunities come available and being able to capitalize them, because we've been reliant on others to fill those gaps. And in some cases, they haven't been able to step forward and fill on one or more of those initiatives. So the Leisure Services Master Plan, probably its most important chapter would be on the programming needs of the township and what would be anticipated as the community continues to grow based on modeling that would look at age demographics, income, and what kinds of leisure services would be required, urban and rural, to meet that changing composition of our community. The final element would be looking at events and festivals and what role should the municipality play in that area, and what is its context in the broader perspective of leisure, and then what facilities or infrastructure would be required, whether the township plays a more active role or in support of community groups or third-party providers that may provide one or more of those types of events or festivals to make sure that they're successful. All of that, from top to bottom, then would result in some recommendations as it relates to staffing structures, if the township is to play a more active role in the delivery of leisure services, and what those order of magnitude costs would be, as well as a prioritization. We can't do everything at once, and so the Leisure Services Master Plan, based upon the completeness of its review, would also provide a blueprint for council in terms of prioritization, what those order of magnitude costs would be, and that informs your capital budget, your annual operating budgets, and the like. But it's the first snapshot of comprehensively your leisure portfolio and what the future would look like. The advantage of having a third-party consultant do it is, one, we're looking at having it done in a calendar, within 1 year of starting. So it's to provide some structure in terms of beginning and ending. It is looking at third-party independent analysis and recommendations to council that are arm's length. It also allows that consultant to draw upon their experience of trends and analysis that are occurring, whether it be in Southwestern Ontario or across Ontario, and how that's influencing leisure and its relevance to North Dumfries. And finally, it allows a dedicated resource to get the project done, so that, you know, council with some confidence can then develop priorities that inform business plans, staffing programs, capital budget, operating budgets as a go forward.
And if I may, Councillor Osner, I was looking at hoping to find, seeing if the direction we could maybe go based on a report would be in the arts and drama and culture way. We're on the cusp of we're becoming an even major dynamic community, but not just sports. We have a lot of talent out there. And should the study point in that direction, I would love to see us sort of focus into the arts and cultures. But again, the report would have to justify that. Councilman,
And the
is
thing
next,
is,
but you
though,
want to
that
finish? Go ahead.
we would always, like, as CO McNeely says, we could have this report done. We could have a 5-year or 10-year report done. Those numbers can change. Those numbers can change on a yearly basis. Services can change on a yearly basis. We can't do everything at once. So even if we look at doing things ourselves, for example, program director, if we hire the recreational director, there's a lot of things that they can recommend to us on how we're going to get programming. I know 2 people myself that have done programming over in Scotland, and she was hired in various different towns and cities in Scotland to get the program up and going. I think that if we have the resources to spend $100,000, that's one thing. But I also think that if we can find a different way to do it economically, I think it can be done on a much smaller scale without having to worry about, well, what are we going to do for the next 10 years on our lifestyle and leisure? Like what do we have to do? I mean, I think it's just going to create a wish list of things, and we're going to reach for those. Not that we necessarily want to. It's just we're going to adopt this plan and start reaching for the stars that we may not necessarily need. And Councillor Gillespie, she's the chair of the Leisure Parks. What's the committee called again, Pam? Sorry.
Leisure and Lifestyles.
Yes, I think a lot of the a lot of work can be done on that committee. I think that committee is looking for stuff to do. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I thought you had commented at one point, or somebody on your committee had commented at one point that, what are we doing? You know, like we're not doing anything. We're not moving anything forward. We're not suggesting anything. We're not working on anything. I still don't. I understand everything CO McNeely is saying. I just don't see the need for us to have a concrete plan on our parks and what we're going to do for the next 5 to 10 years. Whereas I think we can figure this out as a community. And yes, we need to provide services and activities and stuff, but we need that on the level of a rec director that can actually, maybe we could budget a program director that can start doing these programs and stick with the program so that we slowly start to build up the people using it.
Other comments, thoughts, ideas? Councilor McCreary.
Thank you, Mayor Fox. And I actually thought that we were going to defer this for a year. See, my concern is that when we're doing this leisure master plan, what we're trying to do is figure out what services we should preparing or providing to the community. And our community is growing and our community is changing and so on. So we want to find out what we need to provide for them. But our town is going to grow. The town of Ayr is going to grow from 5 to 10,000 people over the next 9 years. And we're doing this study now before the people that we are going to be serving, or we're trying to figure out how to serve these people. They haven't even moved here yet. So I would be thinking that it might be better if we were to take an expensive study like this and wait till maybe Ayr's population has gone up to 7,000 maybe, so that we know when we do any kind of a statistically valid survey, at least we're bringing in the new population. I think if we do this now, maybe we won't learn much. So what I think we should be doing is, rather than taking $100,000 and spending it on a study that might not really tell us what these people are like, are going to be like, is maybe directing that towards the restoration or reno of the ACC, because we know we're going to do that. Like, we know we need space for the volleyball. We did have, I think, a very active basketball league at one time. I think we know we are going to need that facility to be used kind of like a gymnasium. So why don't we just go forward with planning that now, and for a study like this, just wait until we've got the people in place that we actually are trying to serve.
CEO McNeely.
So, Madam Mayor, roughly 2/3 of the expenditure is shown as development charges funded related to the Leisure Services Master Plan. So we can't use the money for our bricks and mortar campaign. in terms of retrofitting a building for that use. But if council desire and wishes to further study, certainly that was discussed at the August workshop, but because we were in a workshop setting, we couldn't make any decisions that furthered the business of the corporation. So the Leisure Services Master Plan has been shown in our 10-year forecast for the last couple of years for a 21 deliverable. And that's one of the reasons why it's being presented tonight. So council can certainly kibosh the study. Council can push it out in terms of an end date, in terms of when it's undertaken. Council can provide direction to staff to reformat what the study would capture in terms of its areas of analysis and return back to council for further direction in terms of that reformatted context.
Councillor Osner, and then Councillor Gillespie.
I just want to make sure, though, that it's not going to stop any potential projects that are on the back burner right now, or any type of new decisions that we make. I don't want to use the fact that we're not doing the leisure plan as an excuse not to entertain certain things that may come forward, like, for example, the pump track or whatever else comes through and comes to us in a year from now or 2 years from now. I want to make sure that we're not going to use that leisure plan as an excuse to say, well, when the leisure plan comes out, then we'll talk about one of these projects, because that's not where I want to go with this. I don't want to use this, let's hold the leisure plan, to hold everybody back on a gate and say we're not moving forward because not until we have a leisure plan. If that's the case, then we should move forward with a leisure plan. I don't want to stop projects and use the leisure plan as an excuse, because I know that it appears that way right now, that like Mr. Bellamy with the pump track, he's feeling like we're using this leisure plan as a rope to hold back a project that people want in this town, certain amount of people want in this town. Whether it moves forward or not, I don't want it to be based on the fact that there is or isn't a leisure plan.
Councillor Gillespie.
Yes, I was just wondering, once we get the Director of Recreation in place, might this person be able to help us with some programming and suggestions and stuff like that? Like, we're going to be paying that person a lot of money too. So perhaps we could, I hate to say we could delay it, because we've been delaying it and delaying it and delaying it. And I agree that really you should get on with it so that we're not holding up stuff. But I'm wondering, what will the role of the new recreation director be exactly? Will he not have, or whoever, have a role in this as guidance?
CEO McNeely.
So, Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Gillespie, certainly the future Director of Leisure and Community Services, and as Council is aware, we have closed in terms of receiving prospective candidates for that position. And obviously it's a position we hope to fill in Q1 of 2021. That individual, would certainly be instrumental in the shepherding of this master plan through the community as well as the consultant team. And at the end, when the consultant provides their independent third-party recommendations and conclusions to council, they would also then be responsible, I'm talking about the director, be responsible, similar to what we've just done with the ICE needs study, determine how it fits within the context of the township. Where are there areas where we're perhaps concerned with some of the assumptions and or conclusions, and indicate to council what that exposure would be in terms of potential impacts on the operating budgets and capital budgets to deal with the first round of prioritized projects would be. Now, they also may suggest a recalibration of some of the priorities in terms of sequencing, but that provides then council that perspective, both independent as well as in-house, to inform next steps to grow the leisure and lifestyle portfolio of the corporation. I think everyone agrees that because change is on the cusp, the demands will grow both for indoor as well as outdoor activities, both passive and active. The question becomes, what are some of those initiatives? How best can they be delivered? And what, if any, implications does that have on operating and capital budgets?
Councillor Rollerman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have to agree with the rest of council. I think we need to defer this until after we hire this new rec director, and then we can revisit this leisure studies plan. I think right now it'd be a little bit premature.
I have to tend to agree with all of you because the recreation director will be slated for interviews in that early 2021. So we're not asking to take it out entirely or anything, and depend on who we get. And that'll be based on the applicants, but I'm a recreation director. That's my profession. Well, when I was young. And sometimes they are functioned into a certain area, a certain programming type of area, and some have a wide scope. So it depends on who we interview and everything else. I think we're all in agreement basically in deferring for now. Maybe CEO McNeely, when do you assume the recreation director will be here, hired and going? You're on mute.
So, Madam Mayor, obviously I don't have a definitive date because we haven't gone through the formal interview process. And obviously, depending upon the candidate that may be identified as the preferred individual, there may or may not be notice obligations to a present employer. But I would think, based on where we are in the current process, I can say within Q1 of 2021. But I really don't want to nail down an actual date because of those other variables.
And I have no problem with deferral. I just want to say something about the pump track. Since working with a lot of mayors across Ontario, it is the one facility they have praised to the hilt for all generations. I found that surprising. Yeah, it's exciting. So several of them have sent me films on it and drawings, and apparently they're just amazing. They're getting all age groups, including seniors, but that's neither here or there. So the motion reads, Council, so do we defeat this motion or do we just defer it? And so you'd go right to the deferral motion. CEO McNeely.
Madam Mayor, this report ties into two reports. Obviously, it's this report.
Right.
But it was also, we asked for early approval before the 2021 budget was approved to expend funds before budget approval. So I'm going to believe you would have to defeat this current motion and do two things with the next motion. I'm assuming council wants to do something with this report. So, you would be receiving the report. The second component of that resolution would be that further consideration of the preparation of a leisure services master plan be deferred until such time as the recruitment campaign for the new director of leisure and community services has been finalized. And the third recommendation would be that no pre-authorized expenditure before the 2021 budget is finalized be permitted.
All right, so Ashley, you got that?
So
go ahead,
so
Councilor.
just for clarity, that's exactly what I was talking about. I don't want to defeat this motion and not do a leisure plan. and then have projects come forward towards us and staff saying, well, I'm sorry, council doesn't want anything until the leisure plan is done. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is I feel that it's premature, as I think most of council does, until we get a director, a Parks and Rec director that can actually be involved and help put this together and be part of it, rather than them walking in and us throwing this down saying, okay, this is what they came up with. I don't want things stop moving forward though.
Correct. CEO McNeely.
So Madam Mayor, just to clarify, in my broken summary of an alternative resolution, I did tie it back to the new director appearing. So it wasn't open-ended forever and a day, but it was basically because we have a parallel report related to the budget that council's already dealt with that pre-authorized the expenditure for the leisure services master plan. If council wants to defer this, seek the input of the new director, that may or may not change the budget or the scope of work. There's no point pre-authorizing the expenditure before the 21 budget is dealt with. So I was trying to deal with two parallel elements. You're pushing this out until the new director is hired. That's quarter one of 2021.
Can I just read the motion first, CEO McNeely? That CEO
Yes.
report number 48, 2020 be received, and that staff be authorized to prepare a request for proposal document and issue the same for competitive bids to retain the services of a consultant to complete a leisure service master plan in 2021, and that upon receipt of the competitive bid to complete the master plan project, that staff return to council with a follow-up report. So can we not defer that whole thing and then recraft?
So the issue that I have is on the budget report, which council dealt with about an hour ago.
Right.
The leisure services master plan was one of 5 projects that staff sought permission to advance forward in advance of the formal approval of the 21 budget. What I'm concerned about is if council wants to defer this until the new director arrives, there may or may not be a revisit in terms of what is captured within the leisure services master plan. So I really don't want to have a budget allocation that's not aligned with the scope of work.
Point of order, so CEO McNeely, should we not go back to that original budget one and change that one?
Well, what I was going to say is if following the rework that I tried to put forward, it would effectively do that.
Okay, Councillor Austin.
That's why I asked at the beginning, I asked that question, that line should be in there until we had this discussion.
So what we're going to do now, this motion will take care of the adjustment into the other previous one, correct?
Correct. If you include that in the resolution dealing with this item.
Okay, so Ashley, can you read what you've got so far? And CEO McNeely, will you clarify if it covers what we need covered?
Okay, so in addition to the pre-prepared motion, I have prepared a motion to follow, which would be that council receive report CAO 48-2020, and that further consideration of the preparation of the leisure services master plan be deferred until the recruitment campaign be completed for the new director of leisure and community services, and that no pre-approval authorized expenditure be granted before the 2021 budget.
Does that cover it all, CEO McNeely? You're on mute again.
So it does a couple of things. It says how we're deferring it. So we're tying it to the hiring of the new director. So it's not open-ended. And the second aspect is that the budget document dealt with an hour ago, as it relates to the expenditure, that's set aside.
Okay, so Councillor Austin. You're on mute. Oh, there.
What happens if we don't find a director till the third quarter. Or if we don't find one in 2021.
Then we defer again.
Or I bring a report back to council saying, this was in your work plan, council, because I'm following your corporate strategic plan that council dealt with in the fall of 2018, early 2019. We identified we would do the leisure services master plan in the upcoming calendar year. So if for some reason the director campaign fizzles, then I'll bring back a report saying, on December the 14th, I was told to do the following. The landscape's changed. Council, here are your options. Okay, and council will give me a new set of marching orders accordingly.
Councillor Rossner.
I'd like this tied into a timeline. I would like to see this tied into the first quarter of 2021. And if we don't have a Parks and Rec director in the first quarter of 2021, that this comes back to council, as CAO McNeely says, as revisited. I don't want this to come back to council next September, October. I'd like to have this dealt with in the first quarter. I just really believe that the new Parks and Rec director, if we get one in the first quarter, needs to be part of this this whole process. But if they aren't hired by the first quarter, then I think we should still move ahead with it.
CEO McNeely.
So, Madam Mayor, to assist and provide comfort in terms of a timeline, do we say, you know, we've already talked about tied into the director's hire. And do we say no later than the report will appear before council no later than April of 2021?
Councillor Rossner, is that okay?
Yeah.
Ashley, can you make that change?
Yes, so I can add at the end of that second portion that it be established no later April of 2021.
Are we ready to vote? Okay, can you read the motion, please?
Sure. Okay, do we have a mover and a seconder for the motion?
Councillor Rossner.
I'll move it.
Councillor Rolliman.
Okay, so moved by Councillor Rossner and seconded by Councillor Rolliman that council receive report CAO-48-2020 and that further consideration of the preparation of the leisure services master plan be deferred until the recruitment campaign be completed for the new director of leisure and community services be established no later than April of 2021 and that no pre-approval expenditures be authorized before the 2021 budget. That sounds okay? So Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rolliman?
Yes.
Councillor Rossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
That carries.
Thank you. Next item we have is 8.1.3 Part C, Report CAO 49-2020, follow up on the Safe Places program, the addendum. Any comments or questions? Okay, can I have the motion, please?
So moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor McCreary that council receive CAO report number 49-2020 for the purposes of information. Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rolliman?
Yes.
Councillor Rossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
That carries.
Thank you. Now we'll go to governance and protective services. Would anyone like to pull any of the items for discussion? Councillor Osner and then Councillor Rolliman. Councillor Osner.
The proposed off-vehicle use bylaw.
So number D. Councillor Rolliman.
D as well, please.
Anyone else? Seeing no one else, can we have the motion for A, B, C, and E?
So moved by Councillor Osner and seconded by Councillor McCreary that Committee of the Whole recommend the following items be approved as presented as outlined in the staff reports listed in the Governance and Protective Services function area, that being item A, B, C, and E as presented. Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rolliman?
Yes.
Councillor Oster,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
and Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
Okay, that carries.
Thank you. Okay, discussion. Councillor Ossner, you first.
Yeah, just a very quick thing about the bylaw of having not allowing any ATVs on the road, etc. That's okay if you're thinking, you know, the Village of Air and the streets downtown, stuff like that. But I'm sure out in Ward 3 and Ward 4, there's a lot of farmers that may have those types of vehicles, like the gators and stuff like that get from farm to farm. There's also a lot of hunters, people have blades on their ATVs to plow driveways and such. They'll be operating, they are operating on the road or the sides of the road. I'm not so sure that if the ministry is going to allow ATVs on the road, I'm not so sure that we should be going against that with a bylaw, unless you want to specify the bylaw as the village inside the city limits, town limits, whatever. And the other thing is, does this include snowmobiles as well? Because I don't think snowmobiles should be in the downtown sections as well. However, out in the country, might be different.
Clarification.
And also the township has a gator, so can the township drive it on the road to get from the ACC to anywhere? Like,
Well, we have any clarification first, and then next is Councillor Rollerman and then McCreary. So any comments, CEO McNeely?
So Madam Mayor, maybe I can start it off and Ms. Stedel may add to it. The current bylaw basically maintains the status quo that's been in place since the Highway Traffic Act was amended under the previous Liberal government. So the way the original language of the Highway Traffic Act was, ATVs and similar rubber-tired off-road devices were not allowed on public highways unless you passed a bylaw to permit them. Under the Conservative government, they reversed it. They said they're allowed as of right unless you pass a bylaw to prohibit. So the bylaw that you see in front of you effectively maintains the current status quo. So as it relates to the township's own ATV, no, it hasn't been on the road since 2015. It is utilized. However, it's floated from site to site as required, because obviously we have to lead by example, and we should not be avoiding and flagrantly disavowing our own restrictions. As it relates to snowmobiles, this speaks specifically to rubber-tired vehicles. And there's a whole different provision under the Highway Traffic Act as it relates to snowmobiles.
Thank you. Councillor Rollerman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just going to echo what Councillor Oster said. With my business on Melair Drive, I see four-wheel off-road vehicles going up and down the street all the time. I've spoken to the bylaw officer and I've spoken with Water Regional Police, and they are just basically not enforcing any sort of rules about off-roading right now. They're allowed, they basically let them have free reign. So what's the point of us going against the province, putting in a bylaw to stop people from riding off-road vehicles when they're already doing it? No one's enforcing it. We might as well just go along with the province as of January 1st, 2021 and allow these off-road vehicles on township roads.
Seeing no comment. Councillor McCreary.
What this bylaw is trying to do is just put things back to the status quo. So as it is right now, everything is fine out in the rural areas. I have never had anyone come and complain to me that they can't run their ATV up and down Alps Road. The issues that we do have out in rural areas are trespassing on private property, people taking ATVs out into fields and destroying crops, people going into bushes and creating paths and jumps in bushes that are privately owned. So I think we should just leave things as they are. And what this bylaw is trying to do is just leave things exactly as they are. I think it would be dangerous to have to allow like an all-terrain vehicle to be on some of our rural roads. There are not very good sight lines. We have a lot of hills, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of hills. People often drive very quickly. And I think it would actually be dangerous to have these, to start allowing these vehicles on the road. So I would prefer that things just stay exactly as they currently are. And that's what this bylaw is doing.
If I may, CO McNeely, what is the regional? Is the region changing their bylaws, or what's happening with the region? Because a lot of our roads are regional.
I do not know what the region is undertaking, but if they do not take a similar position to what's crafted here for township's consideration, then on January 1st, off-road vehicles would be permitted within regional roads.
And to Councilor Rowland's point, he's absolutely right. They're not going to waste the time charging or anything. But from a legal point of view, should we have the bylaw in place and something happened, we're covered. The person on the vehicle is not. Councilor Austin.
Like myself personally, I have witnessed Waterloo Region Police pull over ATVs out by the old Kin Diamond there across from Dan Air. I've seen them pull them over. I don't know what the result was, but I did see them pulled over. And I mean, my biggest concern, to be honest with you, was out in the country in wards 3 and 4. And if Councilor McCreary and Councilor Gillespie have no issue with it, I mean, I don't think that ATV should be allowed in town, within the city, within the town limits of Ward 1 and Ward 2. So to me, it makes no difference. But I was concerned about Ward 3 and 4 because out in the country, like I said, there are farmers that use these ATVs, gators, on a regular basis, and they will get ticketed if they go out on the road. Just so everybody's clear, they will get ticketed if a police officer sees them.
Councilor McCreary.
I'm not sure that Councillor Osner understands that this is just maintaining the status quo. Like right now, if a farmer were to go out on the road and drive his ATV up and down the road, yeah, he'd be ticketed. Probably they don't do that. They cross the road, they go over to another field, they take a short run down the road. No one's bothering them. Everything's fine. What my concern is, if we allow this, that you will have people from Mississauga and Brampton driving out here with trailers full of ATVs. They'll be unloading them onto Alps Road and Greenfield Road, and they'll be driving up and down the road just because they can. And that's what we don't want. We don't need that. And also, once they've come out here, because they can drive freely on the road, they're also going to be taking little detours, and they're going to drive through a farmer's field and wreck his corn. And then they're going to go through somebody's bush. So we don't want to encourage people to come out here for recreational riding of ATV vehicles. And our farmers are just fine the way it is, and they aren't being ticketed for those that do occasionally drive an ATV across the road.
Councillor Osner, and then I'm going to ask Councillor Gillespie if she has any comments.
So as a person who operates recreation vehicles, that's not quite how it goes. That's not quite the mentality of people's. You can't say that the one person that might happen to just come out with their ATV, that's how they're all like. That's not the way it operates. But just so we're clear, those farmers that are crossing the road and driving on the shoulders of the roads, they can be ticketed on their ATVs. So when we start getting complaints, if they start to enforce it, this is the bylaw we're putting in place, because it's come to light this year because the Conservative government has reversed that ruling.
I'm going to let Councillor Gillespie speak first, and then Councillor McCreary. Councillor Gillespie, any comments?
I know there is a huge problem with people from out of town coming with their all-terrain vehicles and using the bush, which the police can't really do anything about either. That's a huge problem. I don't I'm trying to think of some farmers that would be driving around across their field, or I can't think of anybody actually. So we do have an all-terrain vehicle, but we just drive it on our fields. So I think that's like, they would just be crossing the road if they were doing it, and just to get to another field. I don't, so, yeah.
Thank you. Councilor McCreary.
No farmer is going to be ticketed because of this bylaw. That's just simply not going to happen. They aren't being ticketed now. This won't make them be ticketed anymore, but it will just encourage. And I have been told by, I've had property owners contact me and explain to me that they've had trespassing on their property, in their bushes, in their fields. They've had trailers parked on the side of the road. They've approached these people. They've asked them where they're from. They say that they come from Mississauga. They come from Brampton. They've just heard that they can come out here and ride around. And that is actually happening out there. I know not everybody's doing it, but to say that isn't going on is simply not true, because Pam and I have both had these calls. So we should leave things exactly the way they are. The farmers that are just out doing their business aren't being ticketed now, and they won't be because of this.
My only concern, and CO McNeely, I need your help with this one, is if the region doesn't pass the same type of bylaw, then all the roads that are regional roads will allow these vehicles on them, which includes a lot of our major streets in all wards. So CO McNeely, can we find out what the region's doing?
So Madam Mayor, certainly I can reach out to Mr. Schmidt to see what, if anything, regional staff have done to turn their mind to this change. And if certainly not on their radar screen, I can flag it for them to consider as part of a go forward and advise whatever action council ultimately takes tonight as to what's being done locally.
Because I mean, so does that mean that these could go on the expressway?
No. 400 series highways or equivalent, there's different provisions, and you may recall you've seen little signs as you enter onto highways. They're treated totally different.
Okay, but I'm still concerned about us putting this bylaw in place and finding out that people can still go down, you know, Clyde Road and out-of-towners can still come and go down Northumberland Street and Swan and Elks Road, and well, Elks is ours, but Councilor McCreary.
Well, the regional roads are regional roads because of the volume of traffic on them. So I would be very surprised if the region of Waterloo would say that they're okay with ATVs on Roseville Road and ATVs on Northumberland. I'd really be surprised if they're going to allow it.
They have not, this has not come. It's not on any regional agenda. CO McNeely, you need to really get in touch with them, please, and let us know. Because would they supersede our bylaw?
No, they only have jurisdiction over the regional road network as the road authority, just like our bylaw that's presently before you speaks exclusively to township roads, which we're the road authority for. We
right,
cannot
so they can
a bylaw related to regional roads within the boundaries of North Dumfries.
So if they don't get on board, then these vehicles can still go down Roseville Road and all the others. Okay, any other comments or questions? Can I have the bylaw, please? The reading of the motion.
So moved by Councilor Rowland, seconded by Councilor McCreary, that report bylaw -01-2020 be received, and that bylaw number 3210-20, being a bylaw to regulate the operations of off-road vehicles, ORVs, within the jurisdiction of the Township of North Dumfries, be enacted. So Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councilor Rowland?
Yes, I guess.
Councilor Rossner?
Yes.
Councilor McCreary?
Yes.
Councilor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that carries.
Thank you. Okay, and I need the adoption of the committee of the whole resolutions for December 14th, please.
Oh, I do have the motion to reconvene the council.
Oh, okay, yeah.
If that's okay. Moved by Councillor McCreary, seconded by Councillor Ossner, that the committee of the whole is hereby adjourned and the council meeting be called back to order. Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rolman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that carries.
Thank you. Okay, and now we are adoption of the minutes. You do not have to read the entirety.
Okay. So moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor McCreary that council adopt the recommendations as adopted and presented by committee of the whole dated December 14th, 2020. Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rolman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that carries.
And next we have the motion for the minutes of council meeting, committee of the whole, and regional council meeting. So, motion please.
So moved by Councillor Ossner and seconded by Councillor McCreary that council approve the following minutes. A regular council meeting minutes dated October 26, 2020, committee of the whole meeting minutes dated November 9th, 2020, and regular council meeting minutes dated November 23rd, 2020. So Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rolman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that carries.
Thank you. And the memorandum from Shelley Stedall, Treasurer, Director, Corporate Services, read the Municipal Financial Officers Association request to endorse extension request of deadline. Do you want to say anything, Ms. Stedall?
Not really. The memo is pretty self-explanatory. We're just asking all the municipalities to pass this resolution so we can get an extension, and a number of municipalities in the province have passed it so far.
Okay, and you do not have to read it in its entirety. So go ahead, good.
So moved by Councillor Rolman and seconded by Councillor McCreary. So as presented in the memorandum provided by the Treasurer / Director of Corporate Services. Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rolman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that carries.
And next is the 10.2, the memorandum with Ashley Sage, clerk, read your draft resolution request for the Regional Waterloo Transportation Department, update traffic data in Roseville. Councilor McCreary, that data that they brought forward, they said 500 for a major road and 200 for a lower crossroad. In the data, we were above the 500 except for 3 or 2 hours, the 1 o'clock, the 2 o'clock, and the 3 o'clock times. So that doesn't sound right, does it? Don't you? The others were in the 800 and 900 traffics per.
Okay, I think when I asked them if they redo the traffic study from 2016 and just put in the 2% growth rate, which is a standard growth rate, and they fed the numbers in, and what they came up with is that there were out of the 8-hour period, there were 2 hours when there weren't enough cars going through the intersection to warrant a 3-way stop, and those 2 hours were sort of mid-morning, early afternoon. And they weren't that far away. I don't have the thing right in front of me, but I think that we only, needed like another 20 or 30 cars in some cases, and you'd be over the limit. But because they're really sticking rigidly to this, it has to be consistent over an 8-hour period. They're saying we're still not qualified for the 3-way stop.
And I want to argue it. I want to say that at the highest traffic time is the time when our children are going to schools, and it's our busiest times in those communities as well, because it's 2 out of 8.
Yes, you're absolutely right. So during early morning commuting hours and in the evening when people are coming home from work, and that's also when children tend to be moving around because they're going to the bus or they're going over to the community center, that is when traffic is absolutely at a level where there should be a 3-way stop there. So I had exchanged some emails with the regional traffic people as it was last week, and they did say that, I guess that caught their attention. They did say that they would do a traffic study in 2021, an accurate study. But I like this draft resolution because what it does is just enforces that this concern is coming from entire council and not just one ward councillor.
Okay, I'm good with that. But I want that analysis to be kept front and center that they sent us.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, can I have the motion, please? You do not have to read it in its entirety unless Councillor McCreary would like her to.
Oh, no, she doesn't have to. No.
Okay.
So moved by Councillor Ossner and seconded by Councillor McCreary. So as presented in the staff memorandum included in the agenda package. Mayor Foxon, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
That carries.
Thank you. The next one is the correspondence from Irene Adney regarding the Henry Buddy Miracle NHL jersey. CO McNeely, what's happening with that?
So in the late winter, early spring of 2020, we went and got competitive bids from area suppliers to do two things: purchase the shadow box and mount it within the shadow box, and also separate to that, the engravers as it related to the plates that would summarize the relevance and importance locally of this jersey. And no further work has been taken on.
So we have everything in motion. We have the box, we have the plate.
No, we have the quotes under our purchasing bylaw to undertake the task. We have not ordered the shadow box or the engraving of the plate.
Can we proceed, please?
Yeah.
As quickly as possible. Is this something that Sunny could possibly do?
Yeah, Michelle has been tasked with it, but yep, it's something that staff can finalize.
Perfect. So if we can get that done, and hopefully we can have it done by, let's hope March.
Oh,
If not
Madam Mayor,
before.
it's not a complicated job. It's a matter of finalizing the work that was started in the spring.
Okay, so you're saying we can have it fairly soon?
Yep.
Okay, and if we can send a letter to Ms. Adney stating the process of what we're going to do and finalize a date that we hope to have it done by?
Well, I don't want to put a date because obviously I don't control that vendor and their availability. However, certainly we will move forward and authorize the commencement of that work. So purchase order.
Thank you very much.
Will be provided.
Okay. So, can we, Councillor Ossner?
Sorry, I was just going to mention that like Michael's and Kitchener, they have shadow boxes. I mean, it's just a matter of taking it up there and 2 weeks later picking it up, it's completed. So I don't know if the dollar amount needs to go through a process or anything, because I'm sure that it's not going to be.
Well, we'll let staff look at that, and CO McNeely, you'll let them know that those shadow boxes are available, should we need it?
Yeah, as I said, we have our 3 competitive quotes. They're all local Waterloo-based companies that do this type of work.
Okay, thank you. And the motion, please, Ms. Sage.
So moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Rollman that the correspondence received from Irene Schmidt-Adney regarding the Henry Buddy Miracle NHL jersey be received. So Mayor Foxon, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that carries.
I would actually like a date that if it's not done by it comes back to council. Could we have the end of January date set and just directing staff that if it has not happened by the end of January, they come back to council? And I'm going to ask council, will you allow me to put that direction to staff?
If it doesn't come back to or if council or staff can't get it done by that point, give it to me. I'll bring it to Michael's and I'll get it done myself.
Okay, but staff won't attempt to have it done by January or come back to us. Did you have a hand up, Councilor Ullman?
Yes, I'm just curious for clarification. What is our policy on displaying jerseys? Is it NHL players only, or is it do we have a sports hall of fame, or how are we determining what jerseys are being hung up in the NDCC?
Yeah, I mean.
Madam Mayor, through to Councilor Rolleman. There is presently no formal policy adopted by Township Council as it relates to recognition, regardless of the sport or I'll call it cultural relation of the township, because it could be something other than sport in theory. So there is no formal policy.
I was going to go for rock, paper, scissors in the Olympics. So I've got my jersey in the closet. I'll dig it out.
But maybe when we get a recreation director, they can create that policy. So if that's, we'll move on now to correspondence. Is there any item in correspondence anybody wants to touch on? Councilor Rolleman.
The 12.1.3, the speed bump at Patterson, Vincent, that issue.
That's what I was looking at too. So what would you like to say about that? Or
Well, I know that we have been rolling these out in different intersections throughout that neighborhood, and I know that the new subdivision to the south will have some speed calming measures incorporated in the design. So I'm wondering, are there any plans for that Vincent corridor to do any more of these sort of raised intersections, or raised stop blocks, or those sort of things that we've already done on Hilltop?
C.O. McNeely.
So Madam Mayor, specific to the intersection that's identified, no, there's nothing in the capital forecast. Vincent Drive, where it extends southerly into the legacy subdivision that's being built as we speak, there is traffic calming measures proposed in there. I guess the hierarchy has been where it serves more of a throughput to outlet traffic that migrates from neighborhood to neighborhood to try and get to a higher order road like Swan Street. So that's why traffic calming was proposed in Vincent Street within the legacy subdivision, because I can see it being a routing as an alternative to portions of Hilltop to get to either Brant Waterloo Road or Swan Street in the fullness of time. That's why it was done on Hilltop, because we found that there was people utilizing the Hilltop corridor rather than continuing down Scott Street and through the downtown and using Swan Street. This intersection is largely a closed road network in that it serves the residences that frame it. It doesn't outlet to other areas of the road network. So the traffic concerns truly here are a localized neighborhood issue. And, I guess the question should more be, is this where we need to ramp up education about the respect for stop signs and the like? I mean, this is a three-way stop sign at Patterson, Vincent. And if I take Challenger at the northern leg where it intersects Patterson and Robert Simone, that's a four-way stop intersection. And after that, it's a crescent inside the Freer Challenger neighborhood. It doesn't outlet to a higher order road. It's truly the traffic that's trying to go to those residences.
C.O. McNeely, I know that the four-way stop at Patterson and Robert Simone is well marked and painted. Are the lines on the Vincent one and Patterson at the stop sign well painted? I can't recall if they are.
My recollection is there's no pavement marking Obviously, it's the Highway Traffic Act standard for a stop sign, and I believe we also have the chevrons that go down the sign blade or down the sign post. But my recollection, there is no pavement marking.
I would like to recommend that we look into the pavement marking, but not just that, gentlemen and ladies. Those are a lot of children in that area. That's where our growth and our youth are. And yet, when we do those stop signs, we don't put the crosswalk lines across, do we? Do we?
So, Madam Mayor, across the road network, and you know, think of even if I was to go into Clyde or Branston, no, we have not. We have done it where we have heavier pedestrian movements, but no, we have not from intersection to intersection put crosswalks. You know, there's obviously a cost to put the paint down, and it's got to be refreshed every second or third year because it loses its luminaire value. And you know, I apologize. I'd have to pull the bid document that we awarded earlier in the year, what the cost is per crosswalk. But our line budget right now for roadside painting is approximately $16,000–17,000. So if we were to do every stop intersection and the crosswalks, obviously that number would grow.
What are your thoughts, ladies and gentlemen? Because I'm tending to lean towards having crosswalks. I think they're safer, but that's maybe just me. What do you guys think? Councilor Rollerman.
Well, I kind of agree with you, Mayor Fox, and I think that as this area grows, more and more houses will be built to the south. There'll be more and more traffic, and there is a lot of kids up there crossing. So we need to do something, especially at Patterson and Challenger, where where that comes together. That's kind of the real issue there. I think is all the kids crossing for school. So some sort of crosswalk or even a raised intersection. I don't know. Something needs to be done there. I see that area. I've driven by there on some school mornings, and it's pretty busy up there.
And I'm going to let CAO McNeely speak. Go ahead.
So, Madam Mayor, if it's council's wish, I can have Public Works personnel count up the number of stop intersections across the township where they are intersections, because obviously the region's responsible for their own intersections where they intersect a local street. But where it's a local to local road, I'll have Public Works personnel count up the number of stop sign locations, how many presently don't have stop bars, and how many where there would be a sidewalk crossing. Now, I guess the question is, if I was to look at the settlement areas, let's just say Clyde and Branston in isolation, they don't have sidewalks, but yet they've got pedestrians crossing an intersection where there may be a stop control. So
Councilor Gillespie, what do you think?
Intersection counted, because then what I would do is I go back to the bid document. We have a 3-year contract, so I know the pricing for each, what a stop block costs and what a crosswalk costs, and I can give you what the adjustment upwards would be to undertake a comprehensive line painting program across the township.
See, I can see, I was thinking of in Clyde and a lot of those seniors and that getting across, but I don't know if they'd go down to a corner to cross. They would probably just go straight across or whatever. So what do you think, Councilor Gillespie? Is there any, like Clyde Road would be perfect, but it's region, they won't allow it.
Well, it all comes down to people driving way too fast. We've got to figure out a way to stop people from driving fast and going through stop signs. That's the bottom line. And really, I'm racking my brain on how to do that.
And you know what? It's a universal problem.
Well, and I don't think painting, it might help in air where you're talking about. I don't really know that area at all. If there's lots of kids, that might help there. But if it's people that live there that are doing it, then they should take some responsibility. Like, honestly, why do people think they can just drive like maniacs all the time?
Councilor Osner.
I agree. Honestly, I don't think painting the ground's going to do anything. In the way up at Challenger Drive, I think the raised stop hump, what do they call them? Raised humps or
Yeah, you're right. Go ahead.
islands or
We know what you
whatever they're
mean.
called.
Yeah.
I think having something there is the only way you're going to slow people down.
So is that what you're recommending for Patterson Challenge, Patterson Vincent?
I would actually like to maybe staff to look into whether that would suffice. I mean, it's an internal road, so I don't think we need to put a series of speed humps along there. But yeah, I would honestly, I'd rather see some sort of raised hump or islands or whatever they call them right at the stop, that, you know, they're going to
At
have
Patterson
to.
and Vincent and at Robert Simone and Patterson.
If those are the trouble areas, yeah.
Any other comments?
Is this a common is this a common complaint, or are we acting on one email?
Do you know what? Vincent becomes a major road throughway. It really does. And so does the Patterson, Robert Simone. They funnel onto those streets to get to Swan or to get to Hilltop. So they do become sort of a lot of traffic goes through them. CAO McNeely.
But, and Madam Mayor, you know this from seeing the correspondence as well. We get a number of complaints across the urban area of Ayr about vehicles not stopping and respecting a stop sign. We've got the same issue on, you know, the stop bar at Willison and Inglis, Cahoon and Inglis. You know, people are rolling through them, and, you know, in those instances, there are crosswalks where people continue as part of a sidewalk system, in that case, moving east-west. But pretty well, I could probably count on intersections where we're not getting complaints about vehicles not stopping rather than the other way around. It seems to be a universal issue. It's not unique to Ayr. I mean, Waterloo Regional Police, if you were to ask them, would tell you it's speeding and careless driving, or distracted driving and speeding is a chronic issue across Waterloo, urban or rural areas.
Councillor Gillespie.
Yeah, on the speeding business with the police and that, I'm wondering if we could get someone from the police department to come to our meeting in January and discuss this problem and see if they have any solutions that we can do. Like, really, I have no answers for this, and I get emails and phone calls just about every week about speeding. And
can we invite in January meeting, can we ask the police please to ask someone to come and talk to us about speeding? Thank you. If they could find some of the reports that they have done in our area, if they've done any lately also. I know when Ray Ward was a police officer in Clyde Branston area, he always brought the stats with him, but I'm not sure we've had anybody following up or doing anything like that since. Ladies and gentlemen, what do we think about Robert Simone and Patterson and Vincent and Patterson? CO McNeely, Willison wouldn't make sense to put a speed hump thing, the raised intersection, because nobody crosses towards the tracks. It's all one traffic crossing.
I think what Councillor Oster was saying was the raised stop bars. So at the Willison leg entering onto Inglis, where the stop bar is, would be the raised stop bar.
That makes sense.
We have that same scenario if you were to look at Hilltop adjacent Cedar Creek Public School.
Right.
It's the actual stop bar that's raised.
Councillor Rollerman.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I guess maybe what we should do is ask for a staff report on this, because it seems like there's places all over the village and maybe out in the Clyde, Branston, who knows, maybe there's various other places where we could do. I know Piper Street could probably use a couple. So maybe we should get a staff report that's more comprehensive, and rather than just sort of piecemealing this, we should have some sort of plan.
I agree. Everybody else comfortable with the staff report coming back? All right, then, Councillor Rossner.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. The only thing is that I don't want a report to come out without any information that's put into it. For example, we've talked about traffic calming on Piper Street, and we kept the stop sign there temporarily until we decide where we want to go and what we want to do with the traffic calming, because I have said numerous times over that I cannot believe that Piper Church is not a three-way stop and have speed humps all along that whole section where the kids are constantly crossing the ACC arena from the Air News parking lot, because I've seen kids dart out there numerous times. I've seen people swinging at cars going by with hockey sticks because they're going by so fast. Like I cannot believe that a child has not been hit yet there, and I'd like to keep that record of nobody being hit there. But I really believe there's a lot of traffic calming that needs to happen, because I see it all the time, and they're flying up that road, and they're flying down the road, and they're flying up the road, and they don't slow down at all. And there's a lot of children in the winter season that are crossing there. So I don't know if the staff report's going to address that issue, or is it just like where are they going to get the data? Where's staff going to get the data?
CEO McNeely.
So, Madam Mayor, probably the first step would be presenting for council's consideration a traffic calming policy. And obviously it has to recognize the difference between an urban setting versus a countryside versus a settlement, partially because we've got different speed thresholds, but we've also got different kinds of roads. And specifically, if I look at the countryside or the settlement areas, they don't have sidewalks, period. So it's a shared surface between pedestrians and cars. So it creates its own different dynamic versus, let's say, an urban setting like Air, where there's separated sidewalks from the traveled road. And the conflict is when you cross the traveled portion of the road to get from one side of the street to the other. So probably the first cut would be that traffic calming policy, which sort of sets frameworks and accepted thresholds related to those three different environs, recognizing that they each need a different level of treatment and analysis. If council's comfortable with that approach after receiving that report, then the next step would be, okay, based on that screening, what kinds of roads today, based on information that we have or information that we should be gathering, what roads require triaging to introduce one or more different measures of traffic calming? And then that starts to inform your capital budget and your operating budget going forward, because my suspicions will be that a number of roads will be brought into the mix requiring some level of intervention. Some may be paint, others may be more of a horizontal, more of a vertical or horizontal deflection to modulate speed.
Thank you, CEO McNeely. So you are so directed by staff, by council, to get that report. And we will address the motion, please, Ms. Sage. You don't have to read it in its entirety.
So moved by Councillor Rollman, seconded by Councillor Gillespie, that council receive for the purposes of information the following items, so 12.1.1 through to 12.1.10. So Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Rossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Carries.
Thank you. And the next motion, please.
So moved by Councillor Ossner and seconded by Councillor Gillespie that council receive for the purposes of information the following items: the SSAC minutes dated November 2nd and the Heritage Advisory Committee minutes dated November 26, 2020. So Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Roman,
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
and Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that carries.
And again, the next motion, please.
Moved by Councillor Rowland, seconded by Councillor Gillespie, that council receive for the purposes of information the following items: the Region of Waterloo minutes dated November 4th and November 17th, Grand River Accessibility Advisory Committee minutes dated October 22nd, and the Library Committee minutes dated November 17th, 2020. Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rowland,
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Yeah, that carries.
And next we have first and second readings of the bylaws.
Don't we have Councillor Rowland's report?
I apologize. Councillor Rowland, your report on garbage and recycling needs at the cenotaph, next to the cenotaph.
Madam Mayor, so I think you've already dealt with this issue as well, I think at a regional level, but I was contacted by a couple of different residents about over the past few months, actually, and most recently by a resident about garbage and recycling being placed next to this, not so much a cenotaph, but actually the stone, the big stone at the one end. And I even had a few times where I went out and I found garbage actually leaning against the stone. So I know the staff have talked to various property owners and various tenants, and I think they're going to move the garbage over to Northumberland Street. I guess the question is this going to be a long-term solution, or do we need to look at putting something in front of the stone or around the stone so that people can't lean garbage on it?
CO McNeely.
So yes, Councillor Rowland, it's been raised several times. And I went out this morning. The garbage was about 5 feet offset from not the cenotaph, but the general plaza. So there was probably 3, if not 4 bags of garbage and one container of recyclable. That was roughly 5 or so feet east of the edge of the plaza. On Northumberland Street, roughly midway between the plaza and the entry into Wilma's Walk, was another cluster of garbage. So it's not in the plaza per se. That aspect has gotten better since there was the outreach. But yes, there is still garbage on collection day or the Sunday, depending upon when people put it out, leading into collection day, that are adjacent to the cenotaph. And, to be quite honest with you, I'm not too sure how far people are going to be willing to walk to deposit their bags of garbage or recyclable beyond what they've been doing.
But in the past, it was at the cenotaph, so it has improved slightly. Councillor Rowland.
I was just going to say that with my business in downtown Galt, there's a designated place to place your garbage. Now, in that case, it's those giant, mulocks in the ground, but all the businesses and all the tenants down there have to take the garbage to that location. So I don't know, is there any value in us saying this is a designated spot for all the garbage pickup in downtown, make it something reasonable, as opposed to having people just sort of randomly placing it around the plaza there?
CO McNeely, can we have someone on staff get a hold of Cambridge and see?
It would be, we'll reach out to the region. Region's responsible for waste management. So we'll advise them of council's concern, and the region will return back with a proposal for township council.
Thank you.
But it is a waste management.
Yes.
Is exclusively within the region. So we're giving them a problem and they can work the problem.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments on that? Seeing none, now we'll do the first and second readings of the bylaws. You do not have to read them all.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Rowland that the following bylaws be taken as read a first and second time and as presented on the agenda top sheet. Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rolliman,
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
Okay, that carries.
Thank you. And now third reading of the bylaws.
Moved by Councillor Rolliman, seconded by Councillor McCreary, that the following bylaws be taken as read a third time and finally passed. So as presented on the agenda top sheet cover. Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rolliman,
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
Okay, that carries.
Thank you. Now we will be the motion to go into close, please.
Moved by Councillor Rolliman and seconded by Councillor Gillespie that council move into a closed meeting session at 9:26 p.m. under the Municipal Act, Section 239, subsection 2, subsection B and D, to discuss 1, report number CAO 50-2020, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, Municipal Act, Section 239, subsection 2, subsection B, and labor relations or employee negotiations, Municipal Act, Section 239, subsection 2, subsection B, and 2, report number CAO-51-2020, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, Municipal Act, Section 239, subsection 2, subsection B, and labor relations or employee negotiations, Municipal Act, Section 239, subsection 2, subsection D. So Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rolliman,
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
Okay, that carries.